Greetings, everybody. It's Warmech here, on for a very special stream today. We're doing a any percent tutorial of Plants vs. Zombies for the PC. This is a category that's very special to me. I'm the former world record holder, and that record was actually just beaten by my good friend and rival, A1 Major, last weekend. We've probably gone back and forth with this record, 5, 6, 7 times now, and sort of doing so have really helped to optimize the run, as well as bring a lot of popularity to the Plants vs. Zombies speedrun and community, and so forth and so on. It's been a lot of fun, really, optimizing our strategies, bringing the time down, sort of learning more about the game's mechanics, and really looking to improve this run from by I think well over 10 minutes since I just started running the game maybe 6 months ago or so. So a little bit about what you'll be seeing today. This is a pre-recorded run that I recorded yesterday. It's far from perfect. There's some very, very good moments where my strategy is good and I get relatively good luck. And then there are moments where I make a handful of mistakes and or my luck is pretty poor. And so I'll be able to speak to all those things in the run. My goal with this tutorial is truly just educational. Again, kind of continue to provide resources to the community. And to maybe bring some popularity to the run for people who, again, the game is much trickier than it looks like at first glance. It's far from an auto scroller. There's a lot of strategy that can help move the game along forward, and really kind of bring things along much faster. So without any further ado, I'll be starting this recording that I did yesterday and commenting over that. So here we go. Alright, so you'll see here that we're starting just when you load up the game, and the first thing that you're going to want to do is delete any file that you have, and or I guess the more important thing, creating a new user. It's okay to have a secondary file that you use with a completed game for any other runs you might want to do, whether it's mini games or puzzles or survivals or anything like that. But you do need to start this speed run from a fresh file. The reason for that is that if you start using a file where you've already completed the game, you're actually into a new game plus run, and that's actually very different. The levels are different, and things look very, very again, the strategy changes. You have pre-picked plants, and it's just a very different run altogether. So the first things first, you want to start the timing on the exact frame, or as close as you can get, that you planted your first plant. There's a little bit of debate about whether it makes sense to start when you actually press the start button, but the community's kind of agreed on the fact that that we really want to start the game when that first plant is planted. At that point, the timing's consistent, and you can move forward much more easily. So the strategy in this first level is very, very easy. You want to plant your first plant in the 9th or in the 8th row, and then 7th and then 6th, moving thereafter. You start with a lot of sun, and you want to pick up that sun pretty quickly, and try to get your plants down as quickly as possible. Particularly the second plant, because that's the plant that triggers the start of the zombies. So you'll see there it's a pretty consistent level. You're really not going to have much of a difference in time. Maybe plus or minus 3 seconds, sort of just depending on how quickly the zombies decide to spawn. Sometimes they walk on a little quicker, sometimes slower. Sometimes you get a little bit lucky with a last hit that moves forward to another zombie, and sometimes you don't. So that's 1-1. Again, very basic. It's actually impossible to lose the level, but really you just try to mow down those zombies as quickly as you can and move on to the next level. So the next level is 1-2. You'll see right there, like any level, your initial strategy is going to be to try to get as many plants out, or as many sun-producing plants out as you possibly can. In this particular level, 4 is the best number, because there's actually a fair amount of delay that occurs before that first zombie appears. So rather than 3 sun, which is what you normally would put out, you can get 4 sun out. I misplanted that plant that's in the second row. He should be over by 1 square, but it really doesn't matter in this level. I got a little bit of unusual RNG here in that the second zombie, you can see, appeared in the same row that the first zombie had already appeared. So what I did was I decided to plant an extra plant in that row just to really help get that zombie down much, much faster. I'd say that's pretty rare. Usually you get the zombie appearing in the row where the other zombies hadn't appeared, but again, that wasn't the case here. You'll also notice that I'm planting my zombies in the 6th column. That seems to be ideal if you just have one pea shooter shooting down one zombie. There's no chance that the zombie's ever going to reach that pea shooter, and it's a pretty safe distance. You don't want to plant your plants in the first, your offensive plants in the first or second or third rows if you can help it, because there's actually, it can take about 2 or 3 seconds for the pea to make it all the way across the level, and so you really want to try to get the zombies taking damage as quickly as you possibly can. So that's sort of why we use the setup that we do. You'll actually see we got very, very unlucky in this final wave here in that of the 5 zombies that always appear for the final wave, 3 of them appeared in that top row. So we'd much rather have the 2-1-2 split, and we'd rather have we'd rather try to get the most amount of pea shooters. Basically, you'd never want your pea shooters having any sort of idle time. So the reason that we were about 3 or 4 seconds slower on this level than maybe we should have been was simply due to the fact that we got relatively bad RNG in that final wave. We call that the Warmech special when you get the 3 zombies that appear there. It seems to happen maybe only 10 or 20% of the time, but it does happen from time to time. So now we're on to 1-3. You'll see that we have use of the cherry bomb, which will come into play just a little bit later. And in this level, because the first zombie gets on screen a little bit sooner, we only have time to plant 3 sunflowers rather than 4. We might be able to get a 4th one in, but at that point the zombie would be so far progressed along that you would just sort of, you really start to fall behind in the level, and it just doesn't make much sense. So for people who are a little bit more numbers people, we can kind of count it here. Each normal zombie like this takes 10 hits from what we call normal damage plants in order to die. That doesn't vary at all. It's never 9, it's never 11. They're always going to take 10. And so we sort of base our strategies around sort of using our plants to maximize the damage against the zombies that are going to be the most difficult to kill. You'll actually see that we got relatively lucky here in that the 3rd zombie that appeared did not appear in the row where we had no plants. He can appear in any one of the 3 rows, but we sort of lucked out a little bit that he appeared in this row, and that helps to move this level along by quite a bit. The 4th zombie has a 50-50 chance of either being 2 regular zombies or a cone head, and in this case, I know I'm about 15 seconds behind what you're seeing now, but it was a cone head, so it makes sense to use a cherry bomb to get him dead as fast as possible. The 5th zombie that appeared in the top row here also has a 50-50 chance of being 2 regular zombies or a cone head, as does the 6th zombie. So our 5th zombie unfortunately was a cone head, and this zombie here also unfortunately was a cone head. I say unfortunately because the cone heads take 28 damage to kill, so it's actually faster to kill 2 regular zombies, which require a total of 20 hits, as opposed to a single cone head, which takes 27 hits, and you can only kill it in a single row, right? You only have the offensive power of one of your rows. So in this level, I actually got very, very unlucky in terms of the number of cone heads that spawned. So as a result, we're not going to save too much time here. When the final wave appears, you should have your cherry off cooldown at this point, so you just plant it right in the middle right there, and as soon as all 6 of the zombies appear on screen, just plant it and you should be good. Welcome to those of you who are watching the stream. I'm sorry I won't be able to interact with chat too much today, but I do hope that this video is still entertaining and of some value to you if you're interested in the PvZ speedrunning series. So now we're on to level 1-4, and we now have to deal with 5 total rows, as opposed to just 3 like we've done in the previous 2 levels. So much like this level, it makes the most sense to just plant 3 sunflowers at the beginning of the level rather than try to sneak in a 4th one. You could plant a 4th one, but again, it's a little less than ideal. In this case, we move our pea shooter just back by a row. I usually try to leave myself about 2.5 or 3 tiles worth of space when I plant a pea shooter, just to make sure that there's no chance that my peas are going to take damage. I technically could have planted him 1 space farther forward and maybe saved about 1/3 of a second to deliver the final hit, but if the zombie happens to move a little bit faster than expected, that can be a bit of a problem. That actually brings us on very nicely to our next topic of conversation, which is the zombie speed. It might sort of look to you from the naked eye that all the zombies move at the same speed, but that's actually far from the truth. Even 2 normal zombies like this, and we might be able to see a little bit of it with here, their speed can actually vary by as much as, I would say, 10 or 20%. There's sometimes you get a very fast zombie, and you can actually see that the top one is moving just a little bit faster than the one in the bottom in the 4th row there. So again, the zombie speed is not fixed, and that can actually come into play in our strategy. So much like in our previous level, it is possible that we could use 2 pea shooters here, but in this case we have enough sun that it makes sense to just try to kill that bucket head with a cherry. But again, once again, unfortunately, there's always a 50-50 chance in these early levels that you either get a cone head or you get 2 regular zombies. And so far I've gotten the first attempt, I got 2 regular zombies, then I got a cone head and I got another cone head. And the cone heads are the less optimal of the 2 choices. But again, our luck sort of turns around here in that this could have been a cone head plus a regular zombie, but in this case it was 3 regular zombies. So again, you know, this cone head could have been 2 regular zombies, but we got a little bit lucky that he showed up in the row that had the more firepower. Again, he can show up in any one of the 5 rows, but you know, sometimes they cooperate, as did this cone head, and they show up in the rows with the most firepower. But again, sometimes you get them showing up in the rows with the least firepower, and you're needing to struggle and playing catch up the whole time. So as you can see here, we're very prepared for the final wave, and what I try to do for these final waves is make sure that either the top row or the bottom row has a lot of pea shooters in it, just to really what that does is it gives us more flexibility of where we plant our cherry bomb. So in this case, I knew I would need to plant the cherry bomb in the bottom because there's no way that single pea shooter would have been able to kill those 3 regular zombies in time. And I had so much firepower up here that, again, the cherry bomb having a 3x3 radius, you can either clear out rows 1, 2, and 3, 2, 3, and 4, or 3, 4, and 5. And so you just need to make the best decision that you can based on the plants that you have, as well as where, you know, the most cone heads and other the most quantity of zombies shows up. So we'll move on to what was formerly a very favorite level of mine. But speedrunning, unfortunately, has taken a little bit of the fun out of it, just in the sense of it's probably in the top 5 levels in terms of being the most luck dependent. The reason that it's so luck dependent is that you have about, I don't know the exact odds, but I believe it's about a 25% chance that any given spawn that you get for your walnuts can be an Explode-O-Nut rather than just a regular walnut. So you can see right now I've gotten 1, but I actually get a very bad number of Explode-O-Nuts overall in this level. So I've seen as many as getting 6 or 7 or even 8, I believe, Explode-O-Nuts, and as few as like 1 or 0. So you can imagine, and we'll see a demonstration of a Explode-O-Nut relatively quickly here. The Exploder-Nuts, obviously, you know, your best case, your walnuts are going to kill 1, maybe 2 zombies, and the Exploder-Nuts can take out, 6 or 7 worth of zombies, including the Coneheads, which take 2 walnuts to kill, but only 1 Exploder-Nut to kill. So you'll see here, I see a lot of trouble in that top row. It would require 6 walnuts worth of damage to kill, so I decide that it's worth risking my first Exploder-Nut, and I get a little bit lucky that I get another Exploder-Nut here. I decide to take a little bit of a chance and use that one too, in order to spawn the final wave. But you'll see, unfortunately, I don't get any more spawns. So I actually did something a little bit unusual this time around, in that I let the zombies in the bottom row hit the lawnmowers, and the reason for that was I thought that it would save me some walnuts potentially, and that if I got another exploder nut, I'd be able to take care of the first, second, and third rows, or second, third, and fourth rows with no trouble at all. But luck was not on my side with this particular time, and although I had potentially up to 15 seconds to save, I ended up losing 13 seconds. So this was one of the weakest levels in the run, but it was not due to poor play on my part, but rather just due to the lack of exploder nuts and getting a little bit unlucky with some of the bounces and spawns of those walnuts. But anyway, I knew I was recording this run for tutorial purposes. Normally at this point, I would probably restart the run. You really don't want to lose 10, 15, 20, even 30 seconds on the first 5 levels. So we'll get to an important strategy that we talk about now that we have the potato mine. So the potato mine is a very interesting plant that kind of sucks if you're playing through the game casually, but in a speedrun it can be very, very helpful. So normally in order to kill the first zombie, you need to spend 100 sun and then wait for the pea shooter to kill it. But in these early levels that you have the potato mine, you can potato mine the first zombie and he dies instantly, so only at a cost of 25 sun. So it's obviously much faster to kill the first zombie with a potato mine, and then sort of continue planting sun further on, so you can get more sunflowers out. There's a lot of debate about the exact placement of the potato mines, but the rule of thumb is if you can plant the potato mines out very, very quickly, it's good to plant it in the 7th column. Right there, you can sort of see my cursor starting to circle it a little bit. But if you're late, i.e. it takes you, a second or two to get the potato mine out, you want to be a little bit more conservative and go in the 6th column right here. Otherwise, you risk the potato mine being eaten by the zombie. And this is another instance where the speed of the plants, the speed of the zombies comes into play. If you have a very, very fast zombie and you plant your potato mine a little bit late, the zombies can actually eat the potato mine in question. We'll actually see that happen a little bit later on. But in this case, again, my placements have been pretty good. And the other advantage of the potato mine, as you can see there, is it can cause these annoying pole vaulting zombies to jump over them, at which point they slow down significantly. I think their speed is reduced by about 50% or so. So once again, early on in these levels, usually the first cone head that you see, you want to try to plant an exploder or a cherry bomb as soon as you can. I actually meant to plant that sunflower in the bottom column so that he would trigger the pole vaulting zombie. The reason that I do that is because it's the same cost as a walnut, and the walnuts really don't grant you much benefit. The walnuts are a very strong plant in a casual playthrough, but in a speedrun, you really, really don't want to try to delay or slow down the killing of zombies at all. Makes sense, right? It's a speedrun. So as you can see there, a lot of times it makes sense to plant a plant in order to trigger, the movement of a pole vaulting zombie. And again, we try to move on as quickly as we can by planting the cherry bomb in the final wave. In this case, I was a little bit late planting the final cherry bomb, but I got a little bit lucky in the final wave in that the miscellaneous potato mine that I had up there actually ended up killing the cone heads and the other trouble that were up there. So that was a fairly strong level, and we did end up getting the gold. So our strategy really doesn't change too much. The snow pea is a very, very strong plant, once again, in a casual playthrough, but in a speed run, we really only use it in this level, and it's it's not particularly beneficial. So what happened here was I was late in getting that potato mine planted, and I should have planted it in the 6th column, but accidentally planted it in the 7th column. So I decided that rather than risk the potato mine getting eaten, what I would do is just delay it by planting a walnut just a little bit, and then move, and then just letting it get a couple of hits, stalling it for just a second so that that potato mine wasn't rendered useless. It did cost me 50 sun, and this would be a little bit prohibitive in this run, in this level later on. I end up getting a relatively poor time on this level, but away we go. So what we try to do in these early parts of the level is save your second potato mine, so that either if you get a cone head, you can plant it in the right spot, or if you get two zombies that show up in rows that you don't have firepower like this, you can plant the potato mine in one column or in one row, and then plant your pea shooter in the other row. And that's exactly what we do right here, and you'll see we take care of these two zombies almost simultaneously, which is pretty good in terms of proccing our next spawn. So in this case, I did want to try to use the cherry bomb a little bit early, and once again, I was a little bit slow in getting that potato mine out, so I opted for the 6th column rather than the 7th column, because I knew it would take much longer to try to kill this cone head manually than it would to just blow him up. An important note about the cone heads: they have 28 hit points, so they're actually about 3 times more difficult to kill than just a normal zombie. So anything you can do to speed along the kill time for the cone heads, better. Again, once again here we use our sunflower trick to trick the pole vaulting zombie into jumping sooner. The pole vaulting zombies, by the way, have 17 hit points, so they're a little bit less than 2 normal zombies, but their real difficulty is that they move so quickly until they jump over your first plant that they can be a lot of trouble. You almost always want to try to have at least 2 peas shooting the pole vaulting zombie, even after you get them to jump. Otherwise, you can be in a little bit of trouble. And with the cone heads, I really try to get at least 3 plants shooting them, because 3 plants will kill a cone head in about the same time that it takes to kill 1 regular zombie. So in preparing for the first huge wave, which is signified by this flag here, I plant a potato mine right here, just so that I know that we can basically get a fast insta-kill on whatever the first zombie to appear on the bottom row is, and then you see we use a cherry bomb to kill the trouble that's in the other row. So as you can see, basically that huge wave didn't even make it on screen by the time that they died. So it was very, that was a very efficient huge flag that we had there. But you can see that we have a little bit of what we call like a haphazard placement in that. It's better off, overall on average you're going to be better if you can get exactly the same number of plants in the exact correct rows, but sometimes you need to be a little bit proactive because you have certain rows that just generate more trouble. For example, we've gotten a lot of cone heads in this 4th row, and we got another cone head here in this 5th row, not to mention this pole vaulting zombie here, so it was important that we get as much firepower out as we can in those rows. You'll see here that we do have a cherry bomb that's available, but I opted not to plant it because I was concerned that if I planted it now, then I might not have it available for the final wave. So it is possible to get 3 cherry bombs in this level, 1 at the, or even 4, so 1 before your first huge wave, 1 at your first huge wave, 1 in between the 2 huge waves, and then 1 at the final wave. But you basically need to plant it at the exact moment that it becomes available, otherwise it's kind of going to be too little too late, and you won't have your cherry available when you need it most, which is the final wave. So you can see our overall goal in this level is just to get 1 snow pea per row. You really don't need more than 1. And then to really sort of to prep for the final wave, really try to maximize the amount of damage that's going to be done in your top row and your bottom row, so that, again, that way it gives you the most flexibility over exactly where to plant the cherry bomb, which in this case made the most sense to plant here. That second row is looking pretty nasty, and we take care of, with the bottom row, we have that extra pea shooter there, and we take care of him in no time. So a little bit of lost time. You'll see I lost 6 or 7 seconds from my previous run, just due to the fact that that I had that mistake early on with where I planted. I needed to use an extra walnut, and so I wasted 50 sun, it was slow to kill the first zombie, so that was about the 6 or 7 second difference that we saw there. So the 8th level is one of my personal favorites, and this is because it's one of the few levels that lends itself to what we call the chomper strat. So what this strat is it's basically it's a very short level. You can see here at the bottom there's only one huge wave, one flag at the very end. And so there are few enough zombies that we can actually continuously place what a lot of people consider in a casual run as an underpowered plant, the chomper. So what we try to do in this level is we kill the first 2 zombies using a potato mine, and basically try to get as many sunflowers out as we possibly can early in the level. My goal is usually somewhere between 11 and 13, again with, as you would expect, 12 being the average, and it's okay to delay the killing of these first 2 zombies by a little bit if it means that you can get a little bit more sun saved up, as well as a few more sunflowers out more quickly. And you can see in that case, I did plant it in the correct position. But now at this point, we can aggressively plant the chompers here in the 7th and the 8th columns, preferably with a preference given to the 8th columns, just given how quickly we can get them up. And then we just plant the occasional cherry bomb or potato mine in a row that we're expecting to get our next zombies. So again, I say expected because there's no exact science to where the zombies are going to appear. So for example, I didn't know with certainty that there was going to be a zombie in that 3rd row, but it seems as though the game tends to favor zombies appearing where the previous zombies did not appear, i.e. if you get zombies in the 4th and the 5th rows, then there's an increased chance that the zombies are going to be in the 1st and the 2nd and 3rd rows in the subsequent attempts. So in this case, we use kind of an early trick. Again, you can see very well here where the chompers can kind of defend each other pretty well. You can put one behind the other, one in front of the other, and we tend to get our chompers back just in time, as you can see there, to make sure that we never ideally lose any chompers. Again, with these potato mines kind of covering the rows that have no chomper firepower within them. Again, we have a preference here to place the chomper in the 9th row just because it's, or the 8th row because, or 8th column, because it's, more quick to be able to get the zombies and to trigger our final wave. And you can see that I, sort of similar to our other strategies, make sure we have lots of firepower in the 1st row and the last row so that we have a good spot to plant our cherry bomb. It is possible to plant 2 cherry bombs in this level, one early on and then one a little bit later on. And in this case, it was sort of 6 of one, half dozen of another, where I planted the cherry bomb. And you can see we were pretty consistent with our previous time. The only delay being just a little bit of sloppiness regarding the initial zombies and trying to get some of our chompers up just a little bit quicker. That would have been able to save a little bit of time there. So now we move on to a very, very strong plant that's a pea shooter, the repeater rather. So this plant is literally just twice as powerful as a pea shooter, but the advantage, the advantage is, you might say at first, you should really just pick up the regular pea shooters and just plant 2 of them, right? Because you can get the first one out quicker. But you'll find in these levels, particularly levels that have 2 or 3 flags, i.e. the levels are very, very long, that you start to run out of space very, very quickly. You'll see in this level, for example, we try to plant between 15 and 20 sunflowers, and that really doesn't leave a lot of room for chompers and repeaters and so forth. So again, we kill these first zombies or 2 with potato mines. I probably could have been a little bit more aggressive and planted that 1 space farther forward. Again, sort of using my rule of thumb of making sure that anytime you plant a pea shooter or a potato mine, that you have about 2.5 squares worth of space. We can see here that we lost a couple of seconds due to not quite killing that zombie as quickly as we could have if we planted it one space farther forward. But sometimes, particularly in your early levels, you'll want to be as conservative as possible. So I employ a strategy here that does make sense from time to time early on. You can see that it would have taken a very long time to generate the sun that we needed to plant either a repeater or a chomper in the 1st row and the 3rd row. So a good solution is just to use an early cherry bomb like this and just kill him. same thing with these chompers. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using an early chomper in these levels, just to make sure that you, particularly against a difficult zombie like the, like a conehead or a pole vaulter, particularly the pole vaulters, if you can get something to sort of trigger his jump. And again, kind of using a combination of potato mines and repeaters, repeaters being the best against the regular zombies, and then potato mines and any of these sort of one-shot, one-hit kill plants for the coneheads. So you can see that we planted the potato mine in exactly the right spot, and that earlier potato mine that we planted for proccing the pole vault zombie, we got extremely lucky, and we killed the conehead as fast as humanly possible by just getting it dead right then and there. So again, that was sort of there was no way that I could have known that there was going to be a conehead there, but we did get a little bit lucky, and you can see we try to move along to have as close to 20 sun as we possibly can. So I know that no matter where I plant this cherry bomb, I'm going to be able to kill. I'm gonna kill the middle row. So that's what we do. Bucket heads. This is the first bucket head that we're going to see, and bucket heads have an extraordinary 65 hit points. So in other words, they're 6.5 times more difficult to kill than a regular zombie, and they're more than twice as difficult to kill than even a conehead. So rule of thumb is you always want to use one of your one-shot plants on the bucket heads until very, very, very late in the game, when we have just extreme offense or other solutions to being able to deal with the buckets. It would just take way too long to sit there and try to come out with the probably 3 repeaters that we would need in order to kill that bucket sooner than we would. So I mentioned earlier that from time to time you do want to plant a cherry bomb in the middle of the 2 flags, and in this case I was able to plant the cherry bomb very quickly, and we were able to deal with a couple of pesky coneheads, which was very good. So in this case I actually meant to plant the potato mine 1 space farther back, anticipating that we might get a vaulting zombie or something else back there, but I misclicked, and as a result we were a little bit slow killing him, but again, not a very big deal. We get a little bit of bad luck about where this pole vault procs. So unfortunately, you can see he ate him just in time that chomper died, but it's okay. We want to use this chopper to get to take care of him as quickly as possible, and you can kind of anticipate when you get a little more experience, you can anticipate the final wave coming, and sometimes you should be willing to basically go like balls to the walls to get the last zombie dead that's holding you up before the final wave. So you can see our cherry bomb came back just in time. That was not an accident. And in this case, what I knew I wanted to do was use the cherry bomb to kill some of those top zombies, and then just plant a fresh chomper to kill that bucket head, figuring that would optimize things a little bit better, and it did. So despite having a couple of hiccups, losing a chomper, and not being quite as quick at getting my repeaters out as I would have liked, we actually did save a little bit of time that level, and that was one of the stronger levels. Now we move on to probably the second level that is going to be the cause for most resets in this game, and that's 110. This level, you'll see the layout is very different from our earlier levels so far, in that we have no sun. There's no sun production whatsoever, and rather we're just sort of automatically given plants and told to deal with the zombies as is. So this level is the speed of this level is very, very dependent on what types of plants you get. It's much more ideal, of course, to get repeaters than it is just single pea shooters. And actually, in this run, it was I got very, very unlucky with the number of pea shooters. But in this case, I got a little bit lucky because I decided to cover this square early with this potato mine, and it paid off big time in that it took care of my first bucket head without my needing to waste a cherry bomb. So part 2 of what makes this level more luck dependent is just that. It's the number of cherry bombs that you get. So in this case, I've tried to be a little bit quick and kill this zombie right before he eats the potato mine, and that's successful. And then I use my first cherry bomb right there to kill both a cone head and a bucket head. So far, I think the play in this level has been very strong. I opt to use a cherry bomb there just because I had such weak firepower in that bottom row. And same thing here, I opt to use another cherry bomb because we just don't have enough solutions to deal with both the cone head and the bucket head. In hindsight, I really should have saved. I should have tried to save one of these cherry bombs because I do run out a little bit later. But I knew that I was so close to getting the first huge wave that I wanted to get it dead as soon as possible so that we could, move along with the level. You'll see the placement here is a little bit awkward. Again, I just try to balance, the amount of total firepower that I have in each row. This middle row is maybe a little bit strong, and the top and the bottom, or the top and the second row are maybe a little bit weak, but it is what it is. So again, in this case, I decided to save some of my cherry bombs. In hindsight, I maybe should have used one of them a little bit sooner because it took a long time for this mini wave to start to die, and so I think I made a little bit of a mistake there by not using this particular cherry bomb, and then instead, using it in that earlier placement like I talked about. I do think I probably lost about 5 or 10 seconds there alone. In this case, I decided to use a cherry bomb here because I did not think that potato mine was going to spawn in time. And in hindsight, he actually did. Again, here we use basically one cherry bomb or chomper per bucket head is necessary. You really, really don't want to try to kill those bucket heads, without some kind of firepower. In that case, I actually got 2 bucket heads, so that was a very, very good use of the cherry. And in this case, I kind of panicked a little bit, and I really should have used the cherry I should have saved it just for a second and used it in the bottom row. So as a result, I end up kind of wasting a cherry that I might have been able to get away with not necessarily needing. So again, in this case, I decided to use a chomper here, use a cherry here, and really what I should have done again is waited just a little bit longer to use that cherry, and I could have saved yet one more cherry bomb and had it really help us out for the final wave, and or getting this sort of next to last wave dead. So this level has been a little bit inefficient, in part due to usually you should have about 10 repeaters. Right now I only have 8, so I got a little bit below average luck with the repeaters, but I also had I had poor play on this level with the cherry bomb. So the time loss here I would say is 50% the game's fault and 50% my fault. You can see that even if we had one more cherry bomb right now, just one of those cherry bombs hadn't been wasted, I could have saved 5 to 10 seconds there and killed that final wave in no time. So again, I just sort of speak to these mistakes just so that you know that, again, this is, my play was far from perfect. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you feel like you have to make a decision and you just go with it. So again, in a level that I should have been able to save probably 10 to 15 seconds, instead I lost 8 seconds. So 110 was probably the top 5 most detrimental levels to this run, even though it doesn't quite look that bad. I should have been able to save more time than I get. So now we move on to the night levels. So the night levels are very special in the fact that the game does not automatically produce any sun. If you hadn't caught it earlier, the game produces sun both with the sunflowers, but also in the day levels, it will produce sun automatically, but in the night levels, we get no such gifts. So in the night levels, it can take a really long time to get enough sunflowers up and running just to help you produce enough sunflowers and keep up with that. But the game sort of throws you a bone in that it offsets this by having certain plants like the puffshroom that do a decent amount of damage and are free. They don't cost you any sun whatsoever. So really there is no reason not to plant as many puffshrooms as humanly possible, as fast as possible, because you want to try to get that firepower up as soon as possible. So you'll see that the most ideal spot to put the puffshrooms is in this 7th column right here. The reason being, the puffshrooms have a range of only 3 squares. They don't shoot across the entire row like a pea shooter does. They only shoot just 3 squares. So you really want to have them here, and if a normal zombie appears, he will die exactly at the time, if he has normal speed, that it takes for him to get there. So once you have one, so again, really trying to get as many pea shooters in the 7th row as possible is a very, very good thing. If you have a grave that's blocking your 7th row, you want to try to plant your first few puff shrooms in these 2 rows, because if you have one in the 8th row and one in the 9th row, you actually saw it earlier on, that will be enough to kill a normal zombie before he eats both of them. He will eat the first one, but he won't eat the second one. You'll see that we have newspaper zombies there. They too have 17 hit points, and once they drop, they're sort of the opposite of the pole vaulting zombies in that they're slow at first, but after they drop their newspaper, i.e. after they take 7 hits, they really start to speed up a little bit. So on this level, the final wave is very interesting. We have very, very little sun overall. So you really only have enough sun to plant maybe a chomper, maybe a cherry bomb, and that's about it. So planting and you can't plant on the graves, so you really have to try to do a good job of assessing like where the problem zombies are and being able to plant the cherry bomb there, but then sort of making sure that you also have the other rows covered, either via a chomper or just having enough pea shooters. I didn't play that final wave exactly right, but the earlier parts of the level had been very, very, very strong, so I did save 10 seconds in that level. So, just reiterating the point that I made earlier, if you have a grave blocking the 7th column, like we do in the top row here, you can kind of see me circling it there, you want to place your first 2 puff shrooms in that spot such that if the first zombie shows up in the first row, you have a solution. Then what you want to do is in all cases, hold on to your 3rd puff shroom. Don't plant it as fast as you can. Wait and see where the first zombie appears, and then plant it there. The fourth puff shroom, you can either plant it right away if you want, or you can save it and see where your 2nd zombie shows up. In this case, I decided to do that ladder strategy, and then save the 5th puff shroom for where our 3rd zombie appeared. The first 3 zombies will always be normal zombies, so you don't need to worry about too much trouble, but once you get to the 4th and 5th zombies, again, the 4th zombie can either be, I believe in this level, a cone head, or a newspaper zombie, in the earlier levels, or it can be 2 regular zombies, so I actually got a little lucky there that it was the 2 regular zombies. But again, that luck sort of flips on its head, and that our 5th zombie was the slightly more difficult to kill newspaper zombies. But the newspaper zombies are much better to deal with than cone heads. Again, we do get our first cone head here, so again, I get a little bit of bad luck early on. This could have been 2 regular zombies, and instead they botch us with a cone head. And the cone heads, the strategy is you want to try to get 3, there's 2 strategies to kill them. Either you want 3 puff shrooms in a row, in which case he will eat the first puff shroom, but the other 2 will kill him in time, or you want to try to get a potato mine out. If you remember our good friend the potato mine, he comes back into play here, and you can see deals with that cone head very nicely. We're lucky in that we get sun shrooms in this level, which have the advantage of only costing 25 sun to plant rather than 50, but they only produce 15 sun rather than 25. But after they have produced 5 sets of sun, you can see here, like has happened to the top 2, that they grow up and they then produce 25 sun, i.e. the big sun thereafter. We get a little bit of unluckiness with that zombie. He only needed 1 more hit to die, and he didn't get it, but that happens from time to time, so that sort of slowed down the early part of this level. But your first repeaters you generally want to put in the levels that have the most number of rows. So again, it's important to get in this case, the most number of graves. So in this case, it's very important to try to get your first repeater, or maybe your 2nd, up here. Again, as we usually do with a huge wave, we plant a cherry bomb, and in that case, it made sense to put it where the bucket head is. There can be a very random number of bucket head levels in 2-2. This level is somewhat random in terms of the number of cone heads versus newspapers versus bucket heads that it deals to you, so as a result, the time in this level can vary pretty significantly. You can see that my gold was 17 seconds ahead of even the time that I get here, but sort of due to some of that earlier unfortunate bits, as well as some problems that we can see coming up later on, we don't quite end up getting a gold in this level. Again, sort of the strategy is more or less the same from here. Generally, in terms of sun production, which I haven't talked about too much here, your rule of thumb is if there's one flag, you generally want to plant 10 sun-producing plants. If there are 2 flags, you want to produce 15 sun-producing plants. And if there are 3 flags, or if the level just happens to take a long time, you want to generally put 20 sun-producing plants, i.e. 4 columns of them. And eventually, if you ever find yourself running out of space and you just have too much sun, you can always kind of go back and dig some of them up. But again, this rule of thumb really sort of holds throughout the levels. Again, to go over that one more time, if you have 1 flag, 10 sun-producing plants, 2 flags, 15 sun-producing plants, and 3 flags, about 20 sun-producing plants. It varies a little bit in the pool levels, and there's a little bit of give and take that goes along, but there we are. You'll see here in the final wave that I employ a very good strategy of planting a potato mine in advance of whatever the farthest forward grave is. The reason we do that is so that, that if a cone head spawns there, we don't run into trouble. And in this level, it's actually okay to be very, very patient with your cherry bomb. Really try to wait till all the problem zombies are lined up. Use your puff shrooms to help delay them a little bit if you can, and then really do your best to get a very effective cherry bomb. Getting an effective cherry bomb is much more important in this level than getting a fast cherry bomb. So you can actually see my cherry bomb placement was very, very strong at the end of that last level. And we ended up, I guess, being about even. I thought I'd lost a little bit of time there, but it was actually just about even. So once again, we have a grave in the 7th column in the 2nd row. So we want our first puff shroom to show up there. If we had gotten a zombie there, we would have placed it in the 5th column. And when I say 5th column, by the way, I count them left to right. So 1st column would be where you plant your sun-producing plants, and the 9th column all the way over here is, the ones that's closest to the zombies. So when I say 7th, 8th, and 9th, those are the columns that are closest to the zombies. You can see that the setup that we have here to kill this normal zombie will be enough to kill him before we lose that plant. He might take a bite or two, but it's really not too bad. And again, because we had no puff shrooms here, it's much faster to try to kill this cone head with a potato mine rather than a puff shroom. Again, just to re-emphasize, we do not know where this cone head is going to be in advance. We don't even necessarily know if it's going to be a cone head. So you can see that sort of, although this run does involve a lot of careful planning and your strategy, you have to be able to revise and sort of switch up your strategies based on where the plants actually show up. What I decided to do there was use a puff shroom as cannon fodder in order to protect that puff shroom that was in an earlier place. So this is the first that we're seeing of the screen door zombies, and the screen door zombies actually have as many hit points as bucket heads. They're incredibly difficult to kill. However, if you use a fume shroom, which we get for the first time conveniently, but certainly not by accident, in this level, the screen door takes many fewer hits to kill, only about 10, I believe. And so you really either want to use a one-hit kill plant for those screen door zombies, or you want to have at least 1, if not 2 fume shrooms trying to kill it, because otherwise it's going to take a long time. It's like trying to kill a bucket head normally. They have the same amount of hit points if they have their screen door with them. Once again, you can see that I used the strategy here of planting a potato mine next to the grave that's farthest to the left, and in this case it pays off big time in that it instantly kills that bucket head that could have been a real problem. So again, in this case I decided to plant my cherry bomb up here, and then I figured that it would be a little bit faster to try to plant another fume shroom and just try to deal with these 2 bottom row zombies as quickly as I could. I did get a little bit of bad luck in that final wave in that the placement of these zombies just was less than ideal. And the initial grave placements were relatively poor, so I did lose a little bit of time there. I definitely recommend checking out some of A1's runs as well as some of my runs with a personal best in order to get sort of a better better idea of how this level is supposed to go. So now that we're a little bit deeper into things, we can talk about a little bit more about grave placements. So as these levels progress, there are more and more graves that appear, and the more graves that appear, we'll actually find a terrific example of this later on. The more likely it is that it's going to block some of your ideal placements for puff shrooms, i.e., the 6th, 7th, and 8th columns. And you can see that the middle row, the middle row there is going to be a real problem in that it has 3 out of the 7 graves that are in the level altogether. So, you know, we'll have to try to get a fume shroom out a little bit quicker, and/or try to bust some of those graves by the end of the level, which conveniently we get the grave buster for this level as well. Alright, so sort of moving on, again, we want to try to get at least 2 puff shrooms in every row that we possibly can. It's difficult to get 2 useful puff shrooms in that 3rd column, or that 3rd row. Not much that we can do, but such is life. And again, in this level, we have 2 flags, so we're going to be trying to get out 15 sun-producing plants as quickly as we can, sort of intermittently making sure that we appropriately deal with the zombies at hand. The early parts of each level is really about trying to get as much sun production out as you possibly can, while occasionally maybe spending 25, 50, 100 sun here and there in order to best deal with the zombies. You'll see here that we got a pole vaulting zombie. We occasionally get some of those in level 2-4. They're very, very difficult to kill with just puff shrooms alone, but you can see there that we once again triggered his jump using this potato mine, and now that potato mine will be best set up to kill a zombie later on, likely once we get the first huge wave here. You can also see that because I have a very good amount of sun production up, I'm able to continuously produce sun-producing plants. You can see now I start to bust some graves. In hindsight, you really want to alternate between busting graves and planting fume shrooms. I do wish in this level that I'd had a few more fume shrooms early on. You can see there, as usual, for a huge wave like this, I plant a cherry bomb right next to the cone head, because the cone head's going to be the biggest problem. And again, now I sort of start to focus on my fume shroom production. Again, here I try to use another puff shroom just to help deal with the pole vaulting zombie. Again, he should be dead, no problem. And I try to plant some plants just to replace it a little bit. I get a very high number of pole vaulting zombies. You usually don't get this many, but you can actually see a little trick that I did there is if you plant a grave buster, the pole vaulting zombie, being the bright genius that he is, will jump over it and begin to try to and sort of slow down thereafter. So the grave busters, in addition to busting graves, which is helpful, also have the added value of being able to trigger the pole vaulting zombies. You'll see I got yet another one there. In terms of the fume shroom, they have a range of about 5 squares, so 4 or 5 depending on sort of how you cut the math. But you'll see here that planting them in the 5th and the 6th columns tends to be ideal in that they start shooting the zombies basically right away when they get on screen. But if you planted it farther back in the 4th row, they wouldn't be able to start shooting right away, and it can be a real problem. You can see here that my sun production is good enough that it's very, very much okay to plant some chompers in order to deal with problematic screen door zombies or conehead zombies. And I actually got very, very unlucky on this next to last final wave that I got 3 coneheads back to back to back, and there was really just not quite enough firepower to be able to deal with them. Otherwise, this level I think could have been a gold or maybe a near gold. So once again, we're prepared for the final wave. We have lots of firepower, as we always do, in the 1st and 5th rows. We conveniently place our cherry bomb right in the middle and use a chomper to take care of the last problem at the top. And actually, as it turns out, I forgot about this, but I did get a gold anyway. So I highly, highly recommend using this example of 2-4 in your own runs. I got actually not even great placement with the sun or with the graves, but managed to did manage to successfully get a gold. So I felt very good about that. Maybe only by about 4 or 5 seconds, maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds, but so it is. Just as a bit of a heads up, it's not too important when you do your split. Some people split right when they click on the little plant or whatever you get for beating the level. What I do is I wait for the little bass note. I use an audio cue, and I cue my splits right at the end of the bass note. And A1 does it a little bit differently. He splits as the screen fades out and begins to fade into the next screen. It's really just a matter of personal preference as long as you're consistent. Again, the only important thing with the splits is that you start your very first split with the placement of that very first pea shooter in 1-1, and that you end your splits right as you click on the trophy after you defeat Dr. Zomboss. So the very, very first split and the very, very last split are the only ones that matter. So just sort of a note on that. This next level is probably the most consistent, maybe other than 1-1, in the entire game. The zombies are a little bit flexible with, you want to try to whack them as quickly as possible, but it's a fun level. And what you'll see me do here is sometimes click 2 or 3 times, even though normal zombies only take 1 whack, and cone heads only take 2, and bucket heads take 3. But the reason that I click twice is because many times these zombies will generate a coin after you kill them. We haven't talked much about money yet, but that will come into play later in the run. You do want to try to pick up as many coins as possible. I'm not always the most diligent about picking them up in my run. A1 is much better about that than I am. So this level is just a matter of, again, whacking the zombies as fast as you can, picking up sun, using that sun to bust as many graves as you can, with a slight exception. And what you'll see here is that I try to leave the graves as close in proximity to one another as I can. What that does is it minimizes the amount of time that I need to move my mouse between graves, and as you can see here, if you save 150 sun, you can use a cherry bomb, which is a little bit faster, maybe by just a second, compared to trying to click down all of the zombies in the final wave. I was just a little bit late with that sun, with my cherry bomb proc at the very end there, but so it was, and I ended up being a little bit quicker than average. The other thing that I forgot to mention before the start of 2.5 is that after 2.4 you get the almanac, and you want to skip out of any of those cut screens as quickly as you can. Another important note that I forgot to say is that normally you'll notice that the text that Crazy Dave talks at, as well as the text between levels, is extremely fast. So after you beat a level, what you want to do is hold down the Enter key until the start of the next level and all the applicable text has passed. Otherwise, you have to go to this screen where it sort of pops up the little almanac thing, and you get a picture of the plant, and that contributes absolutely nothing to the speed run, particularly once you've learned the plant. So again, I forgot to mention this. I should have mentioned it much earlier on, but you really should press and hold Enter after you pick up the prize that you get for beating the level, and until the start of the next level. That will you'll fly through the text. You basically won't even see the information about the plants coming up, again, you'll just end up being much faster. 2.6 is a relatively quick, and I would say a somewhat consistent level. The main problem zombie is the first time that we're seeing him is the football zombie. So the football zombies take an astounding 80 hits to kill. That's 15 more than a bucket head and 8 times more than a regular zombie. So we want to use our newly given Hypno Shroom in order to just send that football zombie running as quickly as possible. If he does run into another zombie in the meantime, he'll actually eat him. So the Hypno Shroom is very valuable in that it kind of turns the zombies to working for you. So again, you want to plant sun as fast as possible. Save 70. Only use the puff shrooms early on. Save 75 sun to deal with the football zombie, and then thereafter just try to bust as many graves as you possibly can. Starting with the graves that are the farthest to the left, and then kind of moving backwards and onwards from there. It's okay to leave a couple of graves if you think that there's going to be a good cherry bomb spot. So for example, I was relying on putting my cherry bomb right here. You can see me kind of circle it there, right there in that row, kind of given all the problems that were going to show up. I was a little bit behind in getting some of the sun, but I ended up planting the cherry bomb a little farther down just to deal with the bucket head rather than the zombies that I had already basically dealt with in the first row. It was kind of 6 of one, half dozen of another, but you can actually see that, out of the 20-something seconds that I had to save, I saved over 20 of them in that level. That was mostly due to good luck. I didn't get a lot of cone heads in the level, but it was also due to I did plant pretty ideally. So you can see in 2.7 here, I get an example of basically sort of double screwed with the grave placements. It's really, really less than ideal to plant your puff shrooms anywhere farther back than the fifth column, or the sixth column. And it just takes the zombies so long to get there that it can really, really be a problem and really slow down these levels by 5 to 10. I average it about 5 seconds per grave that goes beyond row 7 like this. So in other words, I would lose 5 seconds in the bottom row because I had to plant this puff shroom 1 space farther back, and I would lose almost 10 seconds for each, for the zombies that appear in that top row. I actually had to run and turn on the lights. It was getting dark, so I actually missed a little bit of sun as well as some production there. That was my own fault for not turning on lights as it was starting to get dark in the house. So that slowed me down a little bit. That's simply user error. But you can see here that we got an example here of a zombie showing up in the crappy row. So I do plant a puff shroom, but you are given scaredy shrooms in this level, which are a very, very powerful plant. They do as much damage, believe it or not, as pea shooters, and they only cost 25 suns. You might be thinking, what's the catch? Well, the catch is that if zombies get too close to them, and by too close I mean within 1 square, the scaredy shroom will go hiding underneath, and he'll just let himself get eaten rather than try to actually do some work for you. So I did get a little bit lucky in this level that I was able to plant my first scaredy shroom, again, in that top row, well before, I was able to deal with the first couple waves of zombies first, and then have enough sun to be able to both keep producing my sun plants and plant that scaredy shroom. So really where these levels can come to bite you is if the first few zombies, particularly maybe say the first 3 or 4, or if the first conehead shows up in a row that has a lot of graves. And by a lot, I mean, 3 or 4 in the same row. It would be much nicer if we just had one extra grave in that 4th row, but instead the 4th row gets nothing and the top row gets completely hosed. The strategy for these levels, once you get the scaredy shroom, is, again, for a 2 flag level like this, you want 3 columns of sunflowers, 2 columns of scaredy shrooms, at least 1 column of fume shrooms, a little bit more if you can afford it, and you want to be able to bust all the graves that you possibly can. So the second half of this level is just trying to find that balance of busting graves and planting offensive plants. Again, we really want to deal with this this green door zombie as quickly as possible, so getting the fumes up and being able to better deal with him is very important. You'll see there what I got was a diamond drop. So a diamond is worth 100 of the game's currency, and it is almost necessary that you get 1 diamond drop per run, and the earlier the better. If you don't get any diamond drops, then there is about a 10% chance that your run will end 3 hours into the run because you do not have enough sun. And we'll get to that later on when it happens, but what you do need is you need enough sun to be able to purchase your extra seed slots, which show off in, I think it's usually 2-4 and roughly 3-4, but it's when you have the money to be able to afford those seed slots is when they actually show up. And you then need 7,500 of coin on top of that to purchase a gloom shroom, which is the key to our strategy for the last 6 or so levels of the game. So again, that's why picking up coins is very important, but you also need the occasional lucky diamond drop, and astoundingly, I don't know if I've ever gotten 2 in the same level before. This was extremely, extremely lucky, and as a result, I had 0 money problems for the entirety of the run, and it actually helped to speed along the run a little bit, because I was able to get my extra seed slots and my stronger plants much earlier. So getting that extra currency early was good. You'll see here that the obvious spot for for the bottom row was, or the obvious spot for the cherry was the bottom row. We then go Hypno against this guy and a couple of fumes against the top row. But again, unfortunately, due to those god-awful grave placements that really slowed down the killing of a couple of the zombies early on, we did lose 20 seconds in that level. I was up against a very good time, so, it's not the worst loss in the world, but so it is. This is another level where the grave placements can, it's probably the level that requires the most skill. It's not a long level, but it does require a lot of skill. Probably the most of any level that we've looked at so far. So the real source of problems in this level is the dancer zombie, also known as the disco zombie, and where he shows up with his little disco friends. He will either show up in the second row, the third row, or the fourth row. He almost never, I don't think I've ever seen him show up in the first or the fifth rows, because then he can't proc his little dancer friends, and so I think the game predisposes him to showing up in the second, third, or fourth row. And what we want to do is make sure that we have 75 suns so we can instantly hypno shroom him basically as quickly as we possibly can. But of course we also want to deal with the early zombies that show up in this level, while still sort of trying to maintain a quick production of sun. So there's sort of a tough balance of this level between, getting sun shrooms out and getting good offensive plants out. And if you get some early cone heads, those can be a problem. But you can see here that we're going to get the disco zombie. So I actually made a little bit of a mistake here in that I should have planted and you see the mistake there, I should have planted the Hypno Shroom earlier, not planted that last Sun Shroom. But as it turns out, I actually did kill the Disco Zombie before he spawned another wave. I was probably frames, if not seconds away from getting another spawn of his backup dancer zombies and really being in trouble. So I really lucked out there, and things could have gone seriously worse. I did a very poor job of getting that Hypno Shroom out in time in front of him so that when he walked forward, he would eat the Hypno Shroom and start working for me rather than the enemy. After this, you want to balance the rest of the level with busting graves, particularly graves like this one right here that I'm busting now, and also planting a couple of scaredy shrooms to better deal with the cone heads. There's almost no chance that you're going to be able to bust all the graves that this level has in store for you, so instead you just basically want to do the best that you can. Again, I got very unlucky with that zombie sort of spawning despite the grave being dead. So what I do here is I just try to stall all these disco zombies and cone heads, save room for the cherry bomb there. Wait just a second so that I can blow those zombies in the back. You see those back 3 zombies that I dealt with. And again, I kind of have some problems here. And luckily do get him dead. So if it weren't for that sloppy final wave, which again wasn't totally my fault, where I got kind of unlucky with where a lot of those spawns were, I could have saved even more time. As well as having that mistake fighting the disco zombie himself. And here it is, the moment we've all been waiting for, the astounding, horrible, god-awful, you can see me kind of frustratingly moving the mouse back and forth, but it's extremely unlucky to get 5 graves in the same row. It's probably out of the, maybe 100, maybe 50 to 100 attempts that have gotten this far. I've only maybe seen it twice ever. It's really, maybe 3 times. It's really, really, really unlucky to get 5 in the same row. And you'll see that the game, luckily those first couple of, the very first zombie didn't show off there, but the second zombie did. So unfortunately I had to place a scaredy shroom, which then in turn sort of slows down the production of all subsequent sun shrooms and scaredy shrooms thereafter. So again, it wasn't as horrible as it could have been, but you know, I really got hosed this level, completely outside my control with getting so many graves like I did. I believe you'll always get 11 graves on this level, but the fact that 5 of them, literally half of them, almost half of them, are in the same row is just super unlucky. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. So again, take the time loss that you see in this level with a little bit of a grain of salt. You know, knowing that on average I should be able to at least get one puff shroom out to help me a little bit early on. But you'll actually see that I get even more unlucky here in that the first cone head of the level shows up in this row as well. So again, just truly astoundingly bad luck. You know, not much that we can do other than just throw our hands up in the air and kind of, you know, just make the best, you know, do the best that we can. So you can see I load up on puff shrooms in the early, in the far right most 6 columns. I kind of keep producing as many sun-producing plants as I can. And then I start, you know, once I get enough sun, I do start busting graves, you know, particularly in the problem row. And you can see here, I normally don't plant 3 scaredy shrooms in the same row, but I kind of had to. I ended up busting this grave here so that I would have a good cherry bomb placement if all of the, sorry, a good doom placement, just for the most ideal placement of the doom. I don't know why I did that. I really should have just gone in the 4th rows here, but you know, live and learn a little bit. I think I was just frustrated at that point. The best spot for the doom is are these 3rd columns right here, but you can actually get away with planting a doom in the 2nd column, and you will still just barely hit the zombie that's in the same column as he is in the 5th row. So playing with the doom shrooms and the timing of the doom shrooms is indeed fairly important. You'll see here, I still wanted to be able to get 15 sun-producing plants. It looks a little awkward and, you know, funny, but, you know, again, we kind of had to make do given some of the crappy grave placements that we got. And again, here, it's sort of the same strategy that we had in, you know, what was it, 2.7 and 2.4, where you just sort of balance the second half of this level with, you know, with busting graves. As soon as the doom becomes available, like the cherry bomb, you can plant it as quickly as possible. The other thing that we do is we do take a cherry bomb in this level in addition to the doom, and this provides the nice benefit of, you know, being able to deal with screen door zombies like we did there. Really, what I should have done was planted a few and used the cherry bomb on the screen door and the bucket heads up here. So that ended up costing me a little bit of time, but it's nice to have a cherry bomb just to sort of have a plan B, you know, and a good option to be able to deal with, you know, deal with some of the problems later on. I don't know what I was doing there. I really should have planted that puff shroom up there to protect the fume shroom. That ended up costing me a little bit of time, you know, so I kind of end up digging some stuff here, and I lose a lot of time at the end of this level just to not having the fume shroom as soon as I could have, and misplaying, you know, the fumes, as well as that god-awful, you know, 5 graves that we had to kick the level off. So you can see that the time loss here was truly horrible. It probably could have been worse in hindsight, but you have to consider I also had potentially 20 seconds to save out of my best possible time. So the fact that not only did I not save that time, but I lose an additional almost 20 seconds on top of that, this level was probably the 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th worst level in the run. Again, combination of bad luck, but I do need to point to the bad play that I had too. Again, I was very frustrated at getting a huge number of graves all in the same row here too. So you might get early dooms in this level, and I would definitely encourage you to go ahead and use them, particularly early on, sort of before you have a solution to to dealing with the zombies. You can get away with using them in the top and the bottom row if you happen to really only have a problem in those rows. Again, it takes a lot of time to get the necessary firepower out. Again, you want to go with your scaredy shrooms in the back, your fume shrooms in the middle, and any hypno shrooms, doom shrooms, and puff shrooms just up in the front. You know, fortunately, I get a little bit unlucky here in that this zombie apparently was stronger than his friend, but you know that's the way it goes usually. So I knew I would need to, you know, have another solution for him. And as it turns out, I don't get what I wish for anyway, so I just decide to go ahead and doom them. So again, here I kind of use the same sort of strategy. I wait till the zombies are lined up and doom all of them. Again, there was, you know, no way that I was going to be able to deal with that disco zombie with what little firepower I was given. And again, I'd also like to point out that not only did I get unlucky with the grave placements in this particular run, but I've gotten only basically three plants that, you know, fire more than once. The others have been, you know, I've gotten a good amount of doom shrooms in this level for sure, but really not much in the way of fume shrooms and scaredy shrooms and all the plants that actually help speed along these early parts by quite a bit. So I've had to use a lot of those doom shrooms, and you can see that the doom leaves behind an unplantable little ring there, but again, you know, I felt like I had to use a doom here. There was no way I was going to kill the screen door, no way I was going to kill that cone head in time. So, you know, again, I kind of had to cut my losses and, you know, and be done with it. So, I could have done this earlier, but I decided to do them just so that it would trigger the huge wave. There was no way I was going to wait for anything beyond that. And I dig a grave here just so that I have a good spot to place this doom shroom. So I did get littered with doom shrooms. So the bad luck that I had with my normal offensive plans was actually made up for in doom shrooms in this level. So as a result, I actually haven't lost quite as much time as I could have early on, but it was still a bit of a problem. And I decided at this point, all right, there's no way the game's ever going to give me any more dooms again, so I gotta start using some of these scaredy shrooms to deal with the problems. But of course, the football zombie and impending doom on the fourth row, I kind of had to do that too. So I use the same strategy here, hypnotize, you know, plus a little bit of you know, offensive power, but again, the screen door zombies don't actually counter themselves, not very well at all anyway. You know, that's what we get. I should have saved that hypno shroom a little bit longer than I did. I sort of forgot that I had the fume shroom, so once again I go and I use a doom in one of the good spots. So again, here I go ahead, knowing I'm towards the end of the level, I decide to use the doom in that spot so we can get the screen door as well as the disco zombies. And here I know I'm just going to have to hypnotize him, and I finally get a couple of fumes to my name. And I did get good luck with the grave busters too. I was able to bust every grave, which sometimes you are not able to do. So I do take a little bit of a chance coming up here and use a doom shroom, but I did get another doom shroom to help my cause a little bit. And I'm finally getting the fume shrooms that I've been waiting literally all level for. Really, I should try to have one in every row by the time we get to the fifth wave, but alas. So I make the decision to use a doom shroom there. Otherwise, there was no way I was ever going to get to the final wave in any sort of reasonable time, and basically just kind of sit back and hope that I got another doom by the end of the level that I could use. And as it turns out, I did. I got both a hypno to put in the bottom row, deal with any problems that came there, and a doom to put in the top row, which will kill all of the problematic zombies in the first 4 rows, and I actually got another doom on top of that. So despite getting literally no firepower and having horrendous grave placements, this game littered dooms at me, so I was able to only lose 6 seconds. You know, again, despite having a bit of bad luck there. So 3-1 is, you know, a level that I've sort of revised the strategy and tweaked around with some things, and I do have a lot of time save here, but I can't quite seem to get my own strategy down pat perfectly. So this is a level that falls into the category of being short and sweet. and having enough sun-producing plants that I can better deal with zombies. So I actually sort of use a little bit of a cute strategy here in that I use the puff shrooms not because they do damage. You'll see that the puff shrooms actually fall asleep during the day and they don't do any damage at all unless you plant a coffee bean, which we don't get till much later. But I can use them as cannon fodder in order to help protect impending death on the chompers and the potato mines. And you'll see that's exactly what I do right here. I have a couple of puff shrooms that sort of stalls him just enough that I'm able to get him dead in time. I actually think this might have been a close. Yeah, you're welcome for those of you that are just joining us. It's really my pleasure to do this. It's hopefully you find something good in here, and I can already tell I'm going to start to lose my voice by the end of this 4 hours, but we're going to keep going as long as the old voice decides to hold up. So yeah. So again, I use the same strategy here. Use the puff shrooms. They're free, so I just use them as a stalling tactic while I plant sunflowers, plant chompers, and again, just kind of try to bide my time. And again, in that case, I maybe shouldn't have planted the second one. It ended up, maybe costing me a little bit of time there, but I start to be a little bit proactive with some of the lily pads here. You just know before it's all said and done that you're going to be getting some zombies in the pool levels, or in the pool sections. And if you're very careful with your potato mines, you can actually kill 2 zombies at once. And you can see I got those perfectly aligned. I actually almost lost that potato mine, but the timing was just perfect, and I was able to kill 2 zombies at once. You can see my strategy worked really well, and I wiped out that wave basically as fast as humanly possible. I decided to go chomper there. I stall that guy a little there. Make sure I get my chomper there. And I sort of pray that I don't lose that chomper in time. I get him just back in time, and away he goes. So the execution in this level was fairly strong. I only made one little mistake, and that was by delaying the death of that cone head. I'd also like to have one more sun-producing plant out, but I didn't. You can see the final wave of zombies in the pool levels. You sort of have to deal with them, in a bit of a special fashion. I was able to kill 3 zombies there as opposed to just, 2 or so farther down, and I kind of deal with that wave quickly. So I did save a couple of seconds, but I'd really like to... I felt like my execution was better than the 3 seconds that I saved in this level. So moving on to the text that sort of quickly scrolled through there, what happened there was Dave offered me an extra seed slot. So if I did not get that seed slot, I would have dropped the puff shroom in favor of the squash. The squash is a very, very powerful plant, and we use him in basically every single level from here on out. He helps early on, he kills zombies quickly, he kills bucket heads, and he even helps against the gargantuars at the very, very end. Again, here, if you have the puff shroom like I did, you can use that to sort of stall the zombie a little bit and make sure that your potato mine doesn't get eaten. I just needed about a 1 to 2 second stall there just to sort of double check my work, and I actually cut that a little bit closer than maybe I should have, but that's what we did. And you can see here that unlike in previous levels, we now have another instant kill plant that's not very expensive, that we can use immediately to kill that second zombie. You can place him right here if you want to stall for time just a little bit, but I really recommend placing him in the 9th row, or certainly no farther back than the 8th row, because again, it's just the faster you kill these early zombies, then the faster the next ones spawn, and so forth and so on. That said, you don't want to get into what I've sort of lovingly called the first world problems of Plants vs. Zombies speedrunning, and that is you can actually kill these early zombies a little bit too fast. And you're like, kill the zombies too fast in a speedrun, what are you talking about? Well, what we mean there is, if you kill the early zombies too quickly, you can then reach a situation where you simply don't have enough firepower to deal with some of the bigger waves that happen later on. And you end up losing more time than if you had just waited just a little bit longer to kill those early zombies. So that problem happens a little bit in this level, not to a horrible extent, but you can see here that I really would have liked to have probably 2 or 3 repeaters out by now, but I just had to find other solutions for these early plants, and again, the repeater just isn't going to kill the conehead fast enough, and he's going to be relatively expensive, so I just decided that, well, you know, what else am I going to do here? I could have used a chomper perhaps, but you know, I just decided to go potato mine. I could have planted him a little farther forward as well, but I kind of got a little scared and conservative, so that was a slight mistake. But you can see here that I actually got extremely unlucky in that 3 zombies spawned, and they happened to show up in the rows that I did not have any firepower. And again, statistically, that is going to happen from time to time because, as I mentioned, the game has a slight preference towards spawning zombies in the rows where you don't have any firepower. But, you know, and again, in that case, I got pretty unlucky, and I just wasn't able to quickly deal with some of those zombies as I would have liked. But that said, you know, I dealt with this first half of the level pretty well overall. It was a pretty good time. I do like to have between 16 and 18 sunflowers up by the time we hit the first flag, and you really need no more than 18 total for these early pool levels until you get to the 3 flag ones. Again, easy decision about where to plant the cherry bomb. We deal with it right there. You can plant a cherry bomb earlier in this level if you get 2 zombies that kind of show up side to side next to each other, but again, you know, it's a one-use plant, it's relatively expensive, and again, definitely your first choice is to use squashes against the bucket heads, but your second choice would be just to use chompers, and because the squash is on cooldown right now, you'll see that, you know, I kind of get a little aggressive with the lily pads and just deal with that chomper. You'll see that there's also a bit of an interesting phenomenon that occurs here, that the game isn't super precise about exactly when it spawns its next wave of zombies, and basically the rule of thumb is you're better off trying to damage the highest hit point zombies first. So in other words, the next wave is more like the next mini wave here is more likely to spawn if I remove the bucket of the bucket head than even if I kill that other zombie altogether. So really, at this point in the run, you should be focusing your efforts on trying to kill the highest hit point zombies as fast as you can. Because again, as soon as I get and you saw it right there, as soon as I get the buckets, if the bucket's off, it's basically like, as soon as the game feels like you've done a quote-unquote sufficient job at dealing with the zombies that you have on the screen, it'll then in turn proc the next wave of zombies, but not before then. So again, here, once we get rid of the bucket head, actually, before the final wave, you have to kill all the zombies, so that's sort of the one exception. With these final waves, you always want to make sure you have a chomper, a live, ready-to-go chomper in the pool, in both the 5th and in the 5th column, because otherwise you can really, you know, kind of run into trouble. I opt for the cherry bomb there, the chomper there, and I knew that those rows would take care of themselves. But again, unfortunately, sort of due to some of the lack of firepower that I had relatively early on, as well as some mistakes later in the run that or later in the level that I forgot to point out, like sort of how I forgot to plant a second repeater in the second row, and sort of lost some chompers and just had some slow situations. I did lose about another 15 seconds in that level too. So again, not the greatest play for me here, but so it goes. It is possible that by 3-3 you will not have enough plants. In fact, I would say most times you probably don't have enough plants to have the luxury of having this puff shroom, but again, in this case, because of those 2 early diamond drops that I got earlier and the amount of money that I have, I did get the diamond drop that was necessary. So I want to make one more quick note about the very first zombie and the cherry, or the potato mine that you plant to kill him. So what you can do is you can listen for the audio cue that says, the zombies are coming. And if you see that the first zombie show up really fast after that audio cue, and it looks like he's, hauling ass, that's when you want to plant that potato mine in the 6th column rather than the 7th column. But you could see in this level, I knew that that because of the audio cues, that zombie was going to be moving really slowly. It took him forever to get on screen, so I knew I could safely and conservatively plant the potato mine in the 7th level, or the 7th column, and I would still be okay. And then again, we sort of alternate between squash, potato mine, and then once you have about 10 or so sunflowers, maybe 8 to 10, you can start planting repeaters. And again, you're better off saving your one-hit kill plants for the cone heads and using your repeaters for just the regular zombies. I actually got relatively unlucky here in that what could have been a cone head and an instant death to my squash ended up being 2 zombies and a real problem that I just didn't quite have enough sun to deal with as quickly as I would have liked. So instead, I saved the squash for this guy, again, sort of less than ideally, but I still have a problem now, once again, in the 3 rows that I don't have any firepower in. So again, this was a little bit the phenomenon that I was talking about, the first world problems of Plants vs. Zombies speedrunning, but so again, I had to make sort of a prompt decision here to use a cherry bomb. And what that means is that I won't have it for the huge wave, and I've kind of accepted that as my fate, but I just knew that I was simply not going to get enough firepower in the pool quickly enough to kill the zombies in any sort of reasonable time. But that's a mistake that will just kind of cost me later on. I got the wrong spawns at the wrong time, and so as a result, I didn't get very many sunflowers up. I was always playing catch up, and so the beginning of this level was actually very, very weak. Again, I don't have a great solution to anything in the pool whatsoever right now, so I kind of have to go chomper, but that's a little awkward. I try to push the sun out, and I still have now 3 zombies in the pool that I can't deal with. So again, just to kind of point out my own mistakes, because I think that's important. Now I'm playing catch up, and I have to use a chomper here, but I still have 2 more zombies, that I just can't deal with. And I have a problem now with the snorkel zombie that I can't deal with. I knew that he wasn't going to get killed in time, and again, now I'm playing catch up and I don't get him in time. You can just see how a small mistake early on can really, really make you fall pretty significantly behind in this level. It's taken me so long to deal with these zombies. Now I don't even have a good solution to the snorkel zombie. I can't deal with the firepower of dealing with that cone head and trying to get him dead a little quicker. I end up losing a lily pad here. I've literally just been talking about mistakes for the last 30 seconds, all because I did not do as good a job as I could have early on in those levels, and I got some slightly worse than average spawns. Again, here, I feel like I sort of have to use an interim cherry bomb just to help deal with a couple of those cone heads, and this whole level has kind of fallen apart. That said, I do a good job sort of, once I'm in a bad situation. In my opinion, I did as good a job as I could have, trying to, actually get caught up here. But again, I get a bunch of unlucky cone heads at the end that slow down the spawning of the next to last wave. You can see that using a little cannon fire here is a great way to deal with those snorkel zombies. If you're wondering why the occasional pause is, it's because I have to play in windowed mode, and if I click outside of the window, the game automatically pauses. So it's purely a streaming, OBS sort of issue, one that I've sort of tried to deal with, so it is. I'm not sure why I planted the cherry bomb where I did. I really should have planted it a little bit higher, but you see 55 seconds there and you're like, oh, he didn't play that level that badly. And, the answer, I guess, is, it's relatively true, but I had up to 28 seconds to save in this level. So in other words, I was comparing it against a pretty bad split already. So when you compare bad against bad, it doesn't look all so bad, but trust me when I say that was probably one of the 5 worst levels in this run. Again, mostly execution-wise, but I just also happened to get unlucky when I got double zombie spawns when I wanted buckethead spawn or conehead spawns, and vice versa. And I was always playing just a little bit of catch up, and was just never able to really come ahead in that level. So it was a real problem. So because, moving on here, we now have about a 50-50 chance that you'll have enough money at this point to afford the extra seed slot, and if you do, you definitely want to take the Tangle Kelp. Otherwise, if you can't afford it, the other plants are more important than the Tangle Kelp. But the Tangle Kelp is huge in that now, that problem that I ran into in the early part of the level where I did not have a solution to the pool zombies, if you're just a little bit proactive, and it only costs 25 suns, so it's very, very, very valuable and useful. You really want to try to pump these out as fast as you can and as aggressively as you possibly can, because it really just instantly deals with those first couple of pool zombies, and later on it can help you deal with bucket heads that you might get, or cone heads in the pool as well. So again, it's a luck factor, but if you do get the Tangle Kelp, it does speed along this level, but I would guess like 20 seconds. It's pretty substantial. You'll see here that I decided to get a little bit aggressive and plant a cherry bomb to deal with those zombies. Again, I was being, just a little bit aggressive. I really should have had a potato mine out by now. I don't know why it took me so long to do that, but these zombies can be dealt with just a simple potato mine, and then again, really trying to focus on getting the repeaters out that I did not get out in the last level, all while sort of continuously producing Tangle Kelp and so on. So again, here, imagine trying to deal with 3 zombies without the Tangle Kelp. It would be really hard, right? You might be able to squash one, you could repeater one of them, but what do you do with the other one? You didn't have the potato mine up, but look at this, they're dead, and already I'm on to like the next wave or 2. All because I was lucky enough to get the gold that I needed to deal with, or the diamonds to generate the coin that I needed to deal with, to get the kelp to deal with some of the early spawns in the pool. So again, I just really like to emphasize, sometimes there's nothing you can do. You won't have enough money. You can't afford that extra seed slot. But if you can, the Tangle Kelp is really, really invaluable, I would say, for this level. It's just, I can't understate how important it is to be able to deal with that. Look at that. By the first wave, I had 19 sun produced. I had 4 repeaters. I'm just in so much of a better position than I was previously. So, here I have to, get a little bit cute. Really what I should have done was planted that lily pad farther forward and squashed those 2 zombies. That would have been much, much more efficient than what I did here. But again, I think I was feeling a little bit of pressure to try to get some repeaters out, so I'm like, I'll do that. The squash is kind of cool. If you plant the squash, it's the only plant that then will turn around and hit the pole vaulting zombie from behind. The potato mine or chompers can't do that, but the squash can. So again, if you're quick enough at getting the squash out and getting the pole vault zombie to jump over it, that's a very good way to deal with the pole vaulting zombies quickly and efficiently. Once again, we want to try to get the buckethead zombies with our chompers, and then we just sort of work for the rest of this level on filling out the rest of the level with repeaters and lily paths, getting chompers in the middle columns there, in the middle pool columns there to deal with the final wave, and making sure that we plant as many Tangle Kelps as we possibly can. All while dealing, the occasional squash and chomper and whatever else that we need to deal with bucketheads and coneheads. So I'm actually going to take a quick break from this audio. I just need to get myself a glass of water. You can imagine what all this talking will, kind of does to your body. So I'm going to take a quick water break, have some water, and sort of be back with the rest of this level commentary in just a second. I'd also like to comment that 3-4 is the first level that has 3 flags. So that's why we go all the way up to 22 sunflowers, because that basically lets us, have constant production of repeaters, and with a mix of squashes and lily pads and chompers and basically everything we need to, really kind of lay the smack down to this level pretty effectively. You want to try to get three repeaters in every column. In the pool level, sometimes I'll dig up the back 2 sunflowers to plant them there so that I have better placements for the chompers on the final wave, but it's mostly a matter of personal preference. I would have liked to have had a repeater out in that second row a little bit sooner, but you kind of you get what you get, and really just kind of go all in with the chompers to protect these middle levels. Try to get an earlier potato mine than I did, and then just pick the best spot for your cherry bomb on the final wave, and away we go. So, in my opinion, I don't know if this was the strongest level of the entire run, but, some of the golds obviously probably were, but I was very, very, very pleased with how this level was played, executed, the decisions that I made. So, I would say please use 3-4 as sort of a template for how to play the pool levels. Again, I did get a little bit lucky because I had the Tangle Kelp, and that's very, very helpful, but again, definitely the same kind of logic or principles apply overall. So, 3-5 is another auto-scroller. It's the first level that you have the ability to buy the rake, which is a little bit of a meme within the speedrunning community. But you actually we've decided that it's better to withhold buying the rake on 3-5 and instead buy it on 3-6 and again on 3-9. The reason for that, and then every 3 levels thereafter. The reason for that is that it lets us buy the rake on 4-5. Again, kind of going by those multiple of 3 levels, and buying it on 4-5 is very helpful because having the rake for that level is more of a time save. You can see I made a little bit of a mistake there by not capturing that cone head. That cost me a little bit of time, not a horrible amount, but that having the rake there is just a better it's just a better strategy overall. So with that said, sort of the strategy for this level is you want to try to get a row of pea shooters, which I actually got very, very few pea shooters, and then 1 row of walnuts in the 7th column here. And the reason we put them in the 7th column is that the zombies will then start to bunch up, and you can place your cherry bombs, as you've seen me doing, believe it or not, in the 9th column. And what that does is it tags the zombies that are both waiting at the walnut, anywhere on the green, and, as you can see right here, anywhere on the screen whatsoever. So this is definitely, I'm very, very confident with the strategy for this level that you really want the walnuts right here, you want the pea shooters behind them, and then you kind of continuously plant the cherry bombs. Really your emphasis for the cherry bombs should be on the football zombies, because those are very difficult to kill. Even in this level where they have only like 1/4 the hit points or whatever it is. But again, use your cherry bombs to pick off the football zombies as quickly as you can. And as you get sort of close to the end of the level, I got a little unlucky there with not being able to get that football zombie. That was pretty bad luck. That actually does come back to bite me at the end here. I wish I had just 1 more cherry bomb. I would have been able to do this last bit. I'm comparing against a gold, so that probably did cost me gold. I even decided it's worth using a cherry bomb there just because I really had to deal with that, and a little bit of bad luck thinking that cherry bomb was going to catch the football zombie, and it didn't. Again, I was really a split second away from getting another gold here, but instead I sort of have to sit around and embarrassingly eat a little bit of a time loss. Not a horrible one, but you could tell all 10 of the seconds were wasted here in that 5th column right before the final wave, just due to slightly misplaying one of the cherries. So again, no one to blame but myself there. I also got a little bit of bad luck with the number of pea shooters that I got early, and I actually made probably the first, I won't say it's a major mistake, but a very significant mistake at the beginning of this level, in that I should have gone back and bought the rake. It's very, very, very important to, before these levels, anytime that you possibly can, starting at 3.6, click on the shop and buy the rake. The reason being is that it kills the first zombie instantly at the cost of, one, you don't need to spend any sun, and two, you don't need to put your potato mine on cooldown. You can save it for the third or the fourth zombie even faster. And then to compound all that, I was so flustered by that I planted the potato mine too late and in too aggressive a position. I lost the potato mine and then had to waste squash, and then had to put this potato mine in a less than ideal situation because I was still waiting for it to recharge a little bit more. So I just like to emphasize how horrible the beginning of this level was. I forgot the rake, I misplanted the potato mine. That cost me needing to use, I basically had to use 75 sun just to deal with the first zombie and put my two one-shot plants on cooldown and slow down the production of my sun, all because I forgot to buy the rake. So, there's really no excuse. It was completely my fault, and you'll see that it actually does cost me in this level. I had up to 17 seconds to save in this level, and let's just say we certainly don't save 17 seconds. If I recall, the rest of the play on this level was actually very, very good, but again, it just sort of speaks to the fact that, again, this game is far from an auto-scroller. It's not easy, and one little mistake, like just forgetting to buy the rake on one level, really costs 17 seconds in this run. And in a run where the difference between my personal best time and the world record is only about 15 seconds or so, it's really a big deal when you make a mistake like that wouldn't necessarily be. You might a casual viewer might look at that and be like, oh darn, he lost his potato mine, too bad, it's not a big deal. But it actually was a big deal from a speedrunning perspective, and at this point I was fairly sure that the world record was going to be out of reach. I really had to save some time on levels like 3.3 and 3.6 and I think 2.3 and some of those earlier 2 levels that kind of had some slight issues as well. So anyway, I haven't talked a lick about this level, but on this level the main sort of problem that you run into are the bobsled zombies, or the Zombonis, which can turn into bobsled zombies if you're not careful. So we have 3 possible solutions for dealing with those bobsleds, or 4 maybe. The first is, and probably most common, is the jalapeno. That's really great because not only does it kill the Zomboni, but it also deals with the any ice that you have residual. The second thing that you can use is a squash. You want to try to use the squash in the 9th column as soon as you possibly can. Same thing with the potato mine. If you're lucky and you can predict where the Zomboni is going to be, you can put a potato mine there in time. And the last option that's sort of always or you can actually use a chomper. It's really funny to see the chompers killing the Zombonis. And I guess as a last case resort, you could also use the cherry bomb. But we do take the jalapeno in this level, but I'd like to point out a possible strategy improvement that I've been thinking about earlier. You'll actually see that I feel like if I play the second half of the level just a little bit more conservatively, I could possibly drop the jalapeno and add the tangle kelp, and again, just better be able to deal with some of these pool zombies a little bit faster. The risk is that I could potentially get a Zomboni that I can't kill in time. I don't have the sun for their ability to put a chomper, and I don't have a cherry, and I don't have a squash, and I didn't put a potato mine. but that's just sort of a strategy improvement that I've been considering. You'll see here, of course, I put the cherry bomb right there. That was easy. I can then use a squash to deal with the problems in there, and we clean up the last part of the level very quickly. So again, this is another level that you might say, oh, well, he didn't lose much time. You know, he did a good job. But all 17 seconds of the time save, I'm 100% sure that I lost in that first, you know, issue, and sort of the residual effects after that. You know, I wasn't able to plant as much sun because I had to waste the sun on the squash and the potato, and then I was slow to plant the next potato mine, and you know, the whole level just sort of snowballs after that. So you can be darn sure I remembered the rake in this level. But another disadvantage is if you buy the rake lasts for 3 levels. So if I buy it in 3.7, it'll last for 3.7, 3.8, and 3.9, and then I actually can't buy it without resetting the game on 3.10. So again, it's another sort of spiraling effect of forgetting to buy the rake. So don't do it. Buy the rake on 3.6. Don't forget to do it. That said, starting on 3.6 or in my case 3.7, because I didn't buy the rake, if you have the rake and the squash and the potato mine, what you actually want to do is still immediately plant the potato mine in column 9. And what that does is it gets the potato mine off cooldown, and basically it lets you potato mine a zombie much earlier than you would have if you know, planted it in the 7th column and made him walk all the way towards that. So you could sort of see the strategy work very, very well, and I was glad it did at the beginning of that level. So even though we're not usually very proactive with our potato mines, we tend to be more reactive with them. This is the one instance where it actually does make a lot of sense to be proactive with the potato mine. And again, you want to use the potato mines on the land so that you can then use squashes if you need to in the pool. Because you can't plant the potato mine in the pool. And sort of periodically, you know, I think I wanted to, you know, just use a repeater on him and potentially save the squash for a cone head, but that didn't work out. And then I really should have planted the squash on the second row that you see down there, and I didn't, and you can sort of start to see spiraling mistakes start to happen. You know, I really didn't want to plant that chomper there, but I didn't have much of a choice. And so I sort of foresee the problem coming in the 5th column, and then I sort of, you know, run into a little bit of panic here, and I'm like, oh crap, you know, where am I going to plant the repeater? And so now I end up losing this lily pad, and again, you can sort of see where, you know, just very minor mistakes, you know, kind of not being as diligent as I could have been, and maybe it was even worth planting a cherry, you know, to deal with some of those problems. That's something that I could have done earlier, and by this time the cherry would have been off cooldown again. So we're good. So here obviously makes sense. I should have been quicker about that. There's no reason to delay as long as I did. That was a mistake. Because again, the sooner you kill not the entirety of the wave, but just a large amount of it, including all of the strongest zombies, the sooner then the next zombies will appear. So again, you know, using the chompers and the occasional proactive potato mine, although I'm actually going to lose that potato mine because I got a little bit unlucky. I should have planted a chomper behind him just to, you know, save a little bit, you know, save the potato mine for later on, but I didn't. And once again, you can see here that we are not going to be golding this level, and, you know, we just sort of had problems galore. And I think, you know, sort of going back to, you know, I hate to harp on a single mistake, but I think sort of, you know, like any run, sometimes you can get a little discouraged or, you know, mentally get thrown out of whack, and I do think that that's what forgetting the rake did for me. I was not nearly as good as I should have been. You can see I have this horrible setup here of 3 chompers in a row. This chomper in the back is going to be completely useless. You know, again, it's really just, you know, I didn't get a repeater out nearly as quickly as I should have. you know, I'm behind on sun. I should definitely have all 22 sun out by this point. I should have more repeaters in every row, and it's just not, you know, it's just not fast. It's just really, really bad. You know, I end up, I think, losing this, the chomper in the pool because I wasn't quick enough and I didn't have enough sun to put another chomper there. You know, I end up losing this, very close anyway to losing, yep, I do lose that chomper there. Again, just, you know, very small mistakes that just add up and add up and add up. You know, these couple of levels here are probably the weakest in the run. So once again, I would definitely say go look at my personal best, as well as some of A1's runs to sort of get a better idea on sort of how to properly play these levels. Because again, I think it's important in a tutorial like this to, you know, obviously have good play for the most part. And again, I'm maybe being a little bit overly critical just because, you know, the bar that I've set for myself is pretty high. But you know, again, sometimes it's important to see mistakes so that you kind of know what can go wrong on particular levels, and you don't sort of fall into the mindset of thinking, oh wow, that, you know, everything's so easy and hunky-dory, you know, this isn't going to be a problem at all. You know, again, it is very important to see what can go wrong. I also, I really want to plant the spikeweed. I should have been planting the spikeweed farther in advance, but again, I was behind on sun, so I really couldn't do that. We plant the spikeweed for two purposes. One is because it will instantly kill the zombonis, and two is because it will slowly, very slowly, do a mild amount of damage to the zombies as they walk over it. About the damage of a pea shooter. So it really is a very valuable use of 100 sun. You can see I wasn't prepared for that bucket head there and chompered him, and now as a result I'm not prepared for the bucket head in the pool, and I lose another chomper, and now there's two bucket heads in the pool, and I have to dig up a chomper to use an extra squash to deal with him, and that never should have happened. And I didn't replace the spikeweed in the bottom row, otherwise I could have killed those two zombies faster and proc the final wave faster. So again, I'm sorry to kind of litter you with just a plethora of mistakes here, but again, I want to point out that this level, I don't know if this was the weakest level in the run, but it was certainly up there. I had a very good final wave. I finally felt like I did something right and played that as well as I could have. But again, if I had one more repeater and more sun in that second row, I would have killed that last zombie a second or two faster. So again, these little things really add up, and you can see this probably was the worst level in the game. I lost 30 seconds, and I don't even think I was comparing against a gold. So just an absolutely horrible level, aside from maybe the first 2 or 3 or 4 zombies that I think I played very well. So pay attention to that part of level 3-7, and then basically, disregard what I did for the rest of it. I was always playing catch up, and really just couldn't play things properly. Again, we go the same thing with our proactive potato mine. Obviously, you want to do it in the rake will always be in the row that the first zombie appears, so don't worry about the rake, showing up in some, rogue place that you don't get. It's always in the first place where the zombie appears. And actually, maybe it's not this level, but or maybe it was last level where the zombie hit it pretty early. So. Again, you can see here the advantage of the strat is, I do basically have that potato mine ready to go by the time the third zombie shows up on screen, if not the fourth zombie. And, the first part of these levels are really much more in control than the levels without the rake. Apologize as I take a couple of sips of water here. Again, anytime that you kind of get 2 zombies back to back and you just don't feel like you're going to have the firepower to deal with them, I strongly encourage you to just cherry bomb them. If you use an early cherry bomb like that, you'll still have it in plenty of time for, you can see I made a little mistake there. I should have just gone more conservative. So, once again, mistakes starting to pile up on me. We have our first cone head, and now we have 0 firepower in any useful spot. and zombies showing up in all the wrong places. You can see I normally like to put the repeaters one space ahead, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do that in time without risking losing it. I knew I could just deal with this cone head by just, you know, throwing a potato out there and squash again, because I can't put a potato mine there. I just squashed the zombie in the middle. But you can tell that little mini wave just took so long. I easily lost 10 seconds. Again, it wasn't entirely my fault. I kind of got some bad luck with the spawns, but again, you know, just the slight misplay where I planted the potato mine too far forward, and I just, you know, then that cost me my squash, and, you know, I haven't even used that stupid potato mine since then. So, you know, again, right now you can see I don't even have 16 sun up, and it's the first wave, or the first huge wave. I'm still needing to, you know, just get out just a baseline number of sun-producing plants. I didn't have the cherry because I had to use it too late because I was playing catch-up. So now it's slower to get these waves spawned. Dolphin Zombie's a real pain in the ass. He's basically the pole vaulting zombie of the water. He actually, I think, has the same number of hit points as the pole vaulting zombie, only he's even faster. So the best way to trigger him is by putting a lily pad and/or a lily pad plus a squash in the 8th column, like you can see I did right there. Sometimes you then get unlucky and you get a cone head showing up, but you know, that's how it goes. I use that lily pad just to get a little bit of cannon fodder and not lose the torchwood. But another important note about torchwood is that torchwood, it doubles the damage of any peas that shoot through it. So you might think, oh, well, you know, should I use a torchwood or should I use a repeater? You know, they're about the same cost. But the other advantage of a torchwood is it does a very small amount of splash damage. So if there are two zombies that are in very, very, very close proximity, i.e. they're basically touching each other, then you are actually better off. You can see I wasted another potato mine there in the second row. You are better off planting the torchwood than you would be a second repeater. Sometimes, like in the pool, you don't necessarily have a choice, or one or the other is on cooldown, so you just have to kind of, you know, deal with it as it is. But you are better off, much better off, planting torchwood in general than you are a second repeater. The only slight disadvantage of the torchwood is that you need to generally put it in the 8th or 9th columns. I usually do the 9th for the pool and the 8th for the 7th for the regular land and the 8th for the pools on this level. And you can see, again, partially because of my mistake, I don't even have a torchwood up in the you know, in that part of the pool. So now I know I need to use my cherry bomb to deal with some of those pool zombies potentially. And then I'm like, oh crap, you know, I have a cherry bomb that I didn't deal with very well. So again, just really bad planning. I know for a fact I easily could have saved 20 seconds in this level just by, you know, playing some of that early part a little bit, and in turn, you know, having more sun and just being more prepared for the final wave. You know, that whole snowball effect that I keep talking about. So luckily from here on out, I think there's only one other level that I would say, maybe two other levels that I would say are really bad. And we're about halfway through the run now, at least time-wise. You know, a good time for a new runner would be about 4 hours, and the world record is now sub 3 hours and 44 minutes. So, you know, just for some perspective. So in this level, we have to take. We choose to take, it's a very long level, as you can see, it's 3 flags, so we can't take the potato mine in this level, despite the fact that we would really like to. We really have to take the spikeweed because you're going to be dealing with a lot of zombonis, and it does help a lot with the damage in the later part of the level. You really need the chomper for, you know, some of the bucket heads and the final wave, and the other problems that come along, particularly in the pool. So you can see what I did there was I put the squash deliberately farther back, and the reason for that is because we don't have potato mine, we need to deal with these first few zombies basically by doing 100% squashes. And so I intentionally delay the killing of these zombies so that we don't run into the problem that we had before, i.e. the first world problem of Plants vs. Zombies speedrunning of, oh my god, I killed the first group of zombies too fast, now I don't have a squash, and now, oh crap, my sunflowers are getting eaten. The very first speedrun attempt that I did of this game, I got very, very greedy and put the squashes too far forward, and it cost me big time. At this point, though, now that we have, 12 or more sunflowers out, and we can start producing repeaters nearly non-stop, it's less of a big deal. We can be aggressive with the squash once again. But again, I highly recommend that you place the squash just a little bit farther back than we normally do on this level and this level only, because again, otherwise you'll just find that you get very, very quickly overwhelmed and you simply don't have the firepower to be able to kill the zombies before they start eating your plants. So again, the cone head, we prefer to deal with those with squashes or chompers or things like that. Maybe I should have put a chomper here, but again, I felt like I had done a really bad job at getting firepower out up to this point, and that's what we got. So a quick note about planting lily pads. I tend to first plant your first 2 lily pads in the 4th column, so that way when I get the first zombies, I know that I can put the repeaters right there next to them. I then go back and based on whether if it's a 3 flag level, I'll fill this entire space with lily pads. Otherwise, if it's a 2 flag level, I'll just only plant lily pads in the 1st column alone. You can see that our squash strategy was very, very effective here. We have a crap load of sun. We have repeaters in every single row. We have tons of lily pads out. We had more than enough sun. We can start planting our torchwood. We can plant chompers if we need to. It just, by delaying those first few waves by just a little bit, I really feel like it genuinely saves a ton of time. I opted for a chomper against this guy. I kind of need a chomper in that spot anyway. It's not really much of a time loss. And I really should have been a little bit quicker about trying to get some of these torchwoods out rather than, putting this second repeater here and, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing that the torchwood does very, very well is it triggers the pole vault zombies. So you usually get a couple of shots in, and then you can still kill the pole vault zombie like you'll see here in the 5th row in plenty of time before you start getting eaten. So that's another reason that we plant the torchwood in the 9th column is so that we can better deal with the numerous pole vaulting zombies that we get. You can get pole vaulting zombies before the first huge wave in some of these pool levels, so be prepared for that. I don't think I did this time around, but the other thing is if you do get a bucket head, your repeaters won't kill them in time, so just be prepared to either squash them or chomper them. Again, you can see I did just a much, much better job of getting the torchwood up. In hindsight, I maybe should have put a little bit more firepower in the pool to better deal with that nonsense, but I kind of got unlucky. I think a conehead and a regular zombie spawned at exactly the same time. I'm also doing a better job this time about proactively getting my spikeweed up, which is, not a huge deal, but it is important. Here, obviously, I want to use the cherry bomb right there. I maybe should have waited one more second until that pole vaulting zombie appeared on screen. I might have been able to buy myself a little bit of extra time, but it's not a very big deal. You can see here, I'm very, very glad that I planted the spikeweed that I did. Otherwise, I could have been in some trouble and potentially lost the torchwood. So, again, in this level, probably more so than any of them. Oh, look at that crap! I was really not too pleased there. So I said, F it. We're gonna squash them. But you can see, particularly once you get double repeaters and torchwood, like you really wreak havoc damage-wise. It's extremely powerful, and at this point, this is such a long wave. We can actually get 3 repeaters into most of the columns by the time it's all said and done. here that, you know, rather than digging up the spikeweed, which maybe I should have and gone for the squash, but now with 3 repeaters, we actually can kill even a buckethead in time. It's really a massive amount of damage. Yeah, so. Again, I kind of know based on those bucketheads in the pool that I'm going to need to plant my cherry bomb in the pool, which I do. And then I say, oh, what am I going to do? I'm just going to squash this last. Oh, I couldn't even kill him in time. So this level was pretty good. I would definitely use this as a model. There was one of the early squashes that I think I could have been a little bit more aggressive on. And I could have, there was one little time where I had a little hiccup with, you know, one of the choppers and maybe getting some of the spike weeds and repeaters out just a little bit quicker than I did, but such is life. 310 is also one of the most luck-dependent levels in the game. Probably, you know, again, in the top 5, I would say at the very least. Feel free to, you know, go ahead and either squash or, what was I trying to say? I lost my train of thought. Jalapeno, any of the first cone heads that you get. Really what we pray for in this level is a lot of early repeaters, which we got, and a lot of early torchwoods, which we did not get. And you can see that I take a little bit of a chance, and I'm like, oh, you know, I really, you know, I gotta get some of these guys dead. But again, without, you know, you want to try to save at least one jalapeno or squash if you can to deal with an early buckethead or an early cone head, and just to better protect your torchwoods. You know, once again, we have our good friend the buckethead showing up in as inconvenient a place as possible, so I felt like I really had to put all the repeaters in that row. And again, I guess I think it was kind of a good thing that I did, because otherwise the repeaters could have gotten eaten. Definitely use your Tangled Kelp fairly liberally. You know, they don't really give you, you know, too many of them, so particularly if you get an early buckethead in the pool, you definitely want to save the Tangled Kelp for that. The general strategy here is putting the torchwoods in the 7th column, the tall nuts in the 8th column, and any spikeweed and other things like that you get, squashes if you need to, in the 9th column. I got very, very unlucky here. I really should have more torchwoods than I do right now. Again, definitely go ahead and use your spikeweed to deal with you can be proactive with them if you want to. You can see I use a squash here and here just to better deal with the bucket heads and the cone heads. And again, I was really praying for torchwood here, and I did not get it. So again, I'm focusing the squashes and the jalapenos and all that good stuff on the zambonis if I need to, but also on the rows that don't have torchwood. You can see now how long has it been since I've gotten another torchwood and another 3-peater. I had this same setup for the beginning of the first wave, and all I've gotten is sort of, you know, one-use plants, and you can see it kind of cost me big time here. And then I didn't have a jalapeno to deal with this guy. Oh, I got more money, so I've actually gotten a huge amount of money here. I was super, super close to losing that torchwood, and I'm pretty thankful that I didn't. But you really don't want any ice to appear on the level whatsoever if you can help it, because then you run the risk of spawning bobsleds, which unfortunately we do. And again, here I got very unlucky in that bucket head showed up in the one row that I didn't have any torchwood, and the row that I couldn't have an earlier number of 3-peaters. So I can already tell here that I'm not going to save very many of the 33 seconds that I possibly could on this level. This is another 3-flag level. It's not super long or anything, but you know, again, I really would have liked to have more spikeweed and stuff to deal with the zombonis. And you can tell because I didn't. I did have to endure a couple of annoying bobsleds, although I do make fairly short work of them. The other thing about the ice is you can't plant anything on them. So you can see in this case I had to basically, you know, waste a tall nut just to deal with even though I did have the firepower that I needed to. You know, once you get sort of full repeaters in the second and the fifth columns, I usually alternate between putting them in the pool and then in the top and bottom rows, just so every row has a roughly equal amount of firepower. Sometimes if I'm getting a lot of Zombonis, I'll focus on either the very top or the bottom row for the repeaters. Particularly because the pool, there's more overlap, so it's you can see I lost a Torchwood there. Again, this level is just a complete and utter disaster. Again, really should be. Luckily, I did get a Torchwood. I was like, oh, of course, now they give me the Torchwoods. But the final wave, you can see sometimes you get really unlucky and a bucket head spawns there and it costs you a repeater. But luckily, I did get a Squash to be able to better deal with him. And then, I just kind of mow him down and be done with it. So again, this is another level. Oh, it looks like, he only lost 4 seconds. That's not too bad. But I had 31 or whatever it was seconds of possible time save, and I certainly lost all of it. Mostly due to luck, but there may be a few situations where I should have hung on to a Squash or a Spikeweed or a Jalapeno a little bit longer than I actually did. So now on to the night levels. One thing you want to do, if you're behind and buying, normally you wouldn't buy the rake until 4.2 if you've bought the rake every 3 levels like you're supposed to. A good rule of thumb for that is, at least for the beginning, is buy the rake on any level that's divisible by 3. So 4-2, 42, 3-6, 36, 3-9, 39, 4-5, and then the pattern kind of falls off after that, as we'll talk about in a little bit. But I did remember to buy the rake, so now I feel like I'm a little bit more caught up. The rake, it's the least important to buy the rake on these fog levels, because you have the puff shrooms to be able to easily deal with your first zombie or 2. As well as you have the sea shrooms to deal with the very slow charging sea shrooms, I might add, to deal with the early pool zombies. So one point that I'll point here is in this very first level, you can actually see that very bottom pea shooter shooting, and you can hear a clunk. It's a different audio cue, so I actually knew that there was a cone head there. So that's why I preemptively went and put the Scaredy Shroom up there, as well as putting the extra Puff Shroom, because I knew that the cone head was going to take more damage to kill. Sometimes you can look through the fog, and it's very easy in the top row. You can see the zombie's head kind of sticking out there, so that's a very easy visual cue that you can use. But sometimes in certain pieces of the fog, you can just see a little bit of damage, or you can see your Puff Shroom starting to shoot a little bit, and so that should be a visual cue for you to go back and say, oh, okay, like, obviously there's something bad coming in this row, so you need to, deal with it. The sea shrooms, you should try to put them in the 5th, 6th, and 7th columns. And then to deal with the final wave, it's very, very easy. Well, in this case, I'm actually behind on just a little bit of sun. But what we do is we just use a Doom Shroom, basically anywhere in the pool, but I try to do it a little bit towards the beginning and just blow everything to smithereens, and we're done. So out of the 18 seconds to be seen here, you can see we saved 15 seconds, and that was mostly due to good skill of foreseeing where the cone head was, not getting too many cone heads, and then being pretty quick on the final wave. I could have been just a little bit quicker and potentially gotten a gold overall there, but that's a good example of how to play 4-1. We also wasted a couple seconds buying the rake at the beginning of that level, which we don't usually do. So collectively, I actually think I easily could have golded it, but so it is. Again, you can see here that you have to plant your Puff Shrooms now in a basically invisible place. You can't see them anymore. So the visual cue that you want to use is you want to place them in the column that has the shovel. That is the same as planting it in the 7th column, which, as we remember from earlier, is the right place to put it. Oh, that long pause right there was freaking Windows telling me that it needed to update, and not being able to, as quickly, X out of it and delay it, and I didn't want to click shut down. So seriously, screw Windows, and costing me a couple of seconds right there, as well as interrupting your enjoyment of this lovely tutorial. So 4-2 is a 2 flag level, which means that we want to put 6 sun shrooms in the top section, 6 sun shrooms in the bottom section, and then 4 sun shrooms in the pool. You can get away with slightly fewer sun shrooms in the pool. We don't really have sun problems later on in this level, but early on, as you sort of start speedrunning, I would err on the side of having more sunflower more sun-producing plants rather than fewer, but that's really a decision that's up to you. You can also see that I'm proactively, once again, placing some lily pads in the 4th column of the pool, just so that I can plant some scaredy shrooms in the pool, and that if I get unlucky and get a bucket head or a cone head in the pool, which I actually think I do on this particular level, I have a way to be able to deal with them. So I look at the visual cue and I'm like, oh, I see that little sea shroom shooting somebody, but he actually killed him, sort of much to my amusement. And so then I'm like, oh, where are the other plants? And then I sort of eventually figure out that they were in the 2nd column. I was a little bit late, but the first half of this level really hasn't been so bad. Once again, we make use of our Doom Shroom in the pool, and you'll actually hear an audio cue here. You hear the little Jack in the Box, all around the mulberry bush, and a good time to use your Doom Shroom is right when he's finished the song once. Right as he begins the little tune again, that is the best time to use your Doom Shroom, because by that time, all the zombies that are supposed to have gotten on the screen should be on the screen, and you're maximizing the value of your Doom Shroom. So wait for a second, just for a split second while the song, finishes, and again, that'll put you in good shape to make best use of your juice. On this level, if we're pretty quick, I actually choose not to use a Doom in between the 2 flags, because sometimes you kill, again, first world problems, you kill the zombies so fast that then you don't have the Doom Shroom for the final wave. So right here you see that the Doom respawned, it's off cooldown, but if I used it now, it would not have recharged by the time the final wave appears. I think it takes about 50 seconds for a Doom Shroom to get off cooldown, and we will be done this level in much less than 50 seconds. Again, the strategy here, you want 2 columns of scaredies, 1 column of fumes. Just keep spawning and spamming the sunflower or the puff shrooms, and whenever you get to your last zombie or 2, just give them the old squash. I will point out that you can get a football zombie here, and he can be very, very difficult to see. But don't worry about it too much. Again, we get another audio cue. We do it almost perfectly. We were just a little bit too soon, and that zombie took forever to get on screen, but we get him dead. If we'd handled that last zombie better, we probably could have saved between 5 and 10 seconds. So for here, you might be like, oh, why don't you guys go ahead and use the cactus? You have a balloon zombie, and the game actually gives you a little warning right there saying you're going to need a balloon, or you're going to need something to deal with the balloons, and you don't have one. Well, the answer is we actually do have something to deal with the balloons, and it's the much more effective jalapeno. So the jalapeno costs exactly the same amount as the cactus. However, the jalapeno just kills the balloon zombie outright, as opposed to the cactus, which just pops the balloon, and then he falls, and then you still have to kill him manually after that. So the jalapeno is a vastly, vastly superior strategy to the cactus in this particular level. And then everything else we deal with is basically the same. It's only a 1 flag level, so it's not much of a problem. And we do take the plant turn in this level for the first time so far this run, in order to see where the balloon zombie is. We could wait for him to appear on screen later on and and all that stuff. And I've sort of considered that as a, possible revision to the strategy, but I do feel pretty good about where the strategy is now. Again, I used some audio cues to figure out where that where the conehead zombie was, and I don't like to plant scaredy shrooms. I really try to save every penny that I can for the jalapeno, but I knew I didn't have enough firepower to be able to deal with him quickly and effectively, so I had to bite the bullet and use 25 sun. You can see now is right around the time that we want to be planting. Yep, you can hear that screech, that high-pitched screech. And I actually got a visual cue of where the balloon zombie was going to be. So, again, normally, I should have a planter out by then, but because I had used some sun early to get a scaredy shroom, I wasn't able to afford it. But I did get a slight visual cue and a hint as to where he was going to be. At this point, you just want to deal with putting some firepower in the pool, getting the last couple of zombies dead. You can get a late bucket head, which kind of sucks, just put up some scaredy shrooms to deal with them. Again, this level's going to be very fast. We have more than enough sun to... You have to keep in mind you need sun for both a lily pad and the dune. So we were a little late in getting the last bit of sun there, but we do that, roll them up, collect our plant, and out of the 13 seconds that we could have saved, we saved 11. So, again, a very, very good level there overall. Again, it's now been 3 levels, so we go ahead and buy the rake. This is a longer level, but we get a large number of balloon zombies, so we actually can't use our jalapeno strategy. The jalapeno just simply doesn't have a fast enough recharge time, and it's still really worthless to buy the cactus. So it's much more effective to just use the blower now. The blower only costs 100 sun, and once again, you kill the zombies instantly, and the blower is a solution to the fog. So later on in the level, when we actually have the sun to be able to afford the blower, that is going to solve our vision problem. So we sort of have to deal with the first half of this level in a little bit of a precarious manner, just because we don't have... we don't have the sun to be able to afford an early blower, and our vision can be a little bit poor. But, really what you want to do is sort of the same as any of these other night levels, kind of keep putting up your puff shrooms in the 6th, 7th, and 8th columns, put some scaredy shrooms behind then, keep producing sun as fast as you can, get a couple of lily pads out, and then later on in the level, you use start to afford some of your fume shrooms. Again, I'm trying to let you listen to a little bit of audio here, just so you can hear the difference between what it sounds like when a normal zombie is hit and a bucket head is hit. At this point, it's all normal. Still all normal. Again, you'll hear a very distinct audio cue. Really, I should have been focused a little bit more in getting some plants up in the pool. That was a slight mistake here early on. I ended up putting that scaredy shroom in the wrong row, but it luckily didn't cost me too much. But I think I did end up losing one of the sea shrooms because of it, because we did get as you can see in the 4th row there, we did get a conehead. So that was the only mistake. That first scary shroom really needed to go on the bottom. That could have saved me some time in this level. So again, even though we hear a screech, the best way to deal with this wave, as we always do, is just with a doom. It will kill the balloon zombies, so don't worry about that. And then again, just sort of try your best to keep planting, save your money, and try to, anytime you hear that loud screech, be prepared to just save 100 sun and give them the old blower. Oh yes, our good friend the dolphin zombies are back. They can be a huge pain in the ass in this level. And so sometimes I'll do what I did right there, plant a lily pad and put just a simple sea shroom, or a puff shroom. get a pretty large number of, yeah, look at that. There's another one. This was the level where, unfortunately, I had to waste a lot of sun that could have been used towards more offensive purposes just to deal with, and it didn't even hit that second balloon zombie that shows up. So, again, I had to waste a ton of sun, and as a result, these cone heads, for example, didn't die. So look at that, even another one. This is, usually you might only get 2 or 3 balloon zombies, and I think I'm now at 5 or something like that for this level, which is very, very rare. So it did slow down the rate at which I was able to get some much better firepower up and running. I do the same. Look at that, even another balloon zombie. So, again, this level was mostly in trouble just due to the large number of balloon zombies. But I guess you could argue, if it wasn't balloon zombies, it would be something else. I still think we actually ended up saving a little bit of time in this level overall, because our play and the remaining parts of it were pretty good, and we were up against a relatively bad time. So out of the 27 seconds that we could have saved, we saved about 24 or 25. So I know I complained a lot about the balloon zombies, but in some ways maybe it's almost better to get them because you can just get rid of them so quickly. Alright, so on to Vase Breaker. So normally you buy the rake in Vase Breaker, and it lasts for all 3 phases of the vase break. So with this first breaking of the vases, just smash all the vases as fast as you possibly can, and just put, just plant squashes to deal with the zombies. With this level, you have to slow down just a little bit. Obviously, save your squashes for the bucket heads and some of the later zombies, and plant your plants early to deal with the remaining normal zombies. In this case, I couldn't find what I was looking for until then, so again, that's who I wanted to find. You really want to find the disco zombie in this phase as fast as you possibly can. Again, put a couple of plants out there just to better deal with them. Make sure that you have enough firepower to deal with the bucket heads. I should have planted that last plant maybe 1 space farther up, but it's not a big deal. And actually, despite not having the rake, I golded this by a couple of seconds. So definitely use the strategy that you see there overall for your strategy in 4-5, because that was a very, very, very strong level. And like anything, you'll just kind of get used to it. You'll kind of, you'll know how many squashes you're going to get and how you need to use those squashes, and how to use the hypno, making best use of the hypno shrooms at the end. Making sure that you get the dancer zombie and that you get the buckethead zombies and things like that, and then that you sort of intermittently plant your firepower to deal with any remaining regular zombies that you have left. That said, it is possible to mess up 1-5 and wait for if you don't put any firepower in a particular row, but you end up with a zombie there, you can wait a long, slow, painful death and lose a full minute. So in your first couple of attempts, don't try that quite as quickly as I did. So, that said, I actually made another mistake here and forgot to buy the rake on 4-6. And this had sort of the double effect of not necessarily costing me much time in this level itself, but as a result, I did have to buy the rake in 4-7, and then I didn't get the rake once again in 4-10, because you can't buy the rake easily on the auto-scroller levels. So, again, once again, I just say, please try to be very diligent about buying the rake. It did cost me a fair amount of time in this run. I would put it somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute of total time lost by not buying the rake on these 2 separate incidents. Again, just be very prepared for that. Again, this is another level that I don't like to plant the scaredy shrooms early, but in this case I really felt like I kind of had to, to deal with some of those early bucket heads. Really what you want to do is try to save every penny that you possibly can to deal with the digger zombie, and coincidentally we used the jalapeno once again to just kill him. There's no need for the split pea. There's no need for really anything else. You just want to get that digger zombie dead and be done with him. You're also always going to get a digger zombie for the final wave, so be very, very sure that you plant the Doom Shroom in time to get him in the, approximately 3x3 radius that the Doom has. It's more important to get that digger zombie than to get it quickly. So we'll see here what I mean about trying to plant at exactly the right time for the Doom Shroom. Make sure you have enough sun for a lily pad as well, and plant it right about now. I might have been a little bit too soon. If I'd waited just another half second, I think I would have had that perfect sweet spot of all the zombies being on the screen, but it was much more important that I got that digger zombie dead than killing those last two zombies by hand. But you can see that I would have been near a gold had I been able to time it just perfectly. So again, I have to go and buy the rake, and you'll actually see that I buy the gloom shroom there. Normally you do not have enough sun to buy the gloom shroom at this point, but the reason that I did that was just to make sure that I had it for 5-4, which is several levels away, but it's going to be the first level that we actually need it. So don't worry if you don't have enough money to buy the gloom shroom just yet. You're more likely to have it probably by 5-2, 5-3, maybe 5-4 itself. So this is one of the levels that we've had the most challenges with trying to plan for and strategize in the game. We've gone through a few different iterations. It's obviously very necessary that you have the puff shrooms and the sun shrooms and the lily pads. The squash is also very necessary because you have a large number of bucket heads later on, and of course the Doom Shroom is necessary for the final wave and the huge wave, and even one wave in between. So that sort of leaves you with 2 or 3 seed slots left. In my opinion, I do think that the Plantern is the better pick here, because the Blover, there are no balloon zombies, so it really doesn't make sense to have the Blover and sort of try to deal with the fog that way. It's much cheaper just to have the Plantern. So for the last 2 plants, we've sort of been torn between, because you have a combination of bucket heads and diggers in this level, and it's very, very difficult to find good counters to both of them. So what we found is that the Starfruit is kind of cute in that it shoots a lot of different zombies at once, and a lot of times you'll end up hitting 2 or even 3 sometimes zombies at the same time. So it's a fairly value plant. I'm not totally sold on it. You can always make the argument that maybe there was a better, use case for it or something, but again, I think the Starfruit is pretty good here. You'll also see that because we decided not to pick the Sea Shroom, which again is another possibility that we've sort of toyed with early on, is that you do need to plant lily pads and puff shrooms. As you can see, I did not do that early enough in the pool there, and I'm actually going to pay for it by losing my Plantern. That never should have happened. I was just not diligent enough about getting those out quite quickly enough, and I think I also lost a lily pad as well, so that was a pretty big mistake. And it held up my huge wave. So again, definitely a mistake there, not being prepared enough for. So you can hear the digger zombie, and you can actually see the animation at the top there. I wait as long as I possibly can to still make sure that I get the digger, and I believe I planted that in the correct spot. So we go with the jalapeno because it is one of the very few plants that is both a solution to the digger as well as the bucket heads. So whether you end up with excess bucket heads or excess diggers, you have a plant that's expensive but is a solution to them. It also means that we do need to plant all of our sun shrooms here in the normal part of the level, because we just really don't have, we need to use our lily pads to focus in the middle and getting the puff shrooms out there. So again, I try to get some star shrooms out and, starfruit out, and you can see that it does a good job of covering different levels. I instantly, I want the squash getting off cooldown as quickly as possible, so I instantly squash him. And what do I get? But I get another bucket head. But luckily, I just had the Doom respawn in time, so I was able to deal with that bucket head using the Doom there. And you can see I still have the jalapeno on cooldown, that if I get a digger or if I get another bucket head, I can still deal with him. And what do we get? We get another bucket head. This is definitely an above average number of bucket heads. Usually there's maybe only 2 or so. But we've also gotten a little bit lucky in not having too many diggers that have given us problems so far. So you can tell I put some cannon fodder there to protect my Plantern. The Plantern actually has a relatively long cooldown, and I just used that squash just because I knew the final wave was coming up very shortly. You can see here that the Doom is just coming off cooldown in time. So I decided to instead dig up this, and I end up planting it a little bit too soon. I didn't follow my own advice, so I just guessed that the zombie would be there, and you can see that starfruit actually did help just a little bit. So again, there was more time to be saved in that level. I didn't quite execute it perfectly, particularly the final wave and that hiccup that I had losing the Plantern early, but there's another 10 or 15 seconds that could have been saved had I played those 2 particular parts right. I am open to suggestions for how to improve level 4-7, but again, the problem is, you want an infinite number of plants, but you just simply don't, you just don't have that many. 4-8 is a fairly consistent and quick level. Again, we want to make sure we have the rake, get up our puff shrooms and sea shrooms kind of in their normal spot. And this level is played much like the first level with the digger zombie, 4-6, in that the instant that the main problem this time is the pogo zombie, but luckily a very cheap, good solution to the pogo zombie is the squash. He'll just jump on him every single time, as long as you plant the squash ahead of his path and not behind his path. So what we do here is we pick up the Plantern, again, as a cheap, quick, and easy way to see where he's coming. I have found that the best spot for the Plantern is where I plant him in the pool. You could move him 1 spot over in any direction and it would still kind of be okay, but, again, I like the spot where he is. I decide to kind of keep planting sun, and now you can see that we basically have visibility of every place that we need to, and we're exactly 15 sun away from planting our squash. We get the squash off just in time, and down he goes. So that's exactly how you want to deal with that pogo zombie. He's very quick, and if you do have to eat a death, i.e. or eat a lawnmower on him, that's actually not necessarily the end of the world. It does probably cost you about 5 seconds, but don't feel like your level is completely lost. You only have one of them. Again, I got another diamond here, which is just, those of you who have watched multiple streams will realize that, again, this is a rare, unusual sort of thing, so that's what we get. And then at that point, it's just kind of planting, a couple of scaredy shrooms to deal with your bucket heads. Maybe planting a little bit more in the pool than I did there, and making sure that you save enough sun for the final wave. I just got enough in time. I don't know why I did that. I think I was just hoping to maybe delay some zombies there by just a little bit. Go there, wait just a second. You got to be patient with the Doom, and in this case, the timing was absolutely perfect. So I saved 3 seconds out of a possible 10 that I could have. So pretty good play overall. There's a little bit of a luck component to all of these levels, of course. If you get lots of cone heads, or you get very inconvenient places for the zombies, you can lose time that way, but I feel good here. So 4-9 is the other level that I'm probably the most open to potential strategy changes. This is normally a level where you would buy the rake, but because of my forgetting to buy the rake on 4-6, and it gets delayed by 1 level. So the first thing that I'll point out here is I am up against a gold. It was a very, very, very good level that I had in my personal best, so I would consider watching that for some general strategies. But What we have done in this level is we used to use the fume shroom, but we recently replaced that with the scaredy shroom because it is less expensive, and it's actually very rare that the fume shroom will be able to even hit 2 zombies at the same time. So i.e. the fume shroom and the scaredy shroom in many ways do the same amount of damage as each other. The downside to not having the fume shroom is that you know, again, if you do get a lot of zombies in a single wave, it's, you know, you could lose just a little bit of time, but again, that's kind of, you know, the price you pay for having something a little bit less expensive. In this level, it's very, very important to kind of listen for audio cues. Try to, like, look through the fog. Like, right now, you can kind of see that in the the 5th column. There's a zombie there, and it's probably a bucket head, so you really want to try to get the firepower up there, and just making sure that you remember where you've planted all the puff shrooms so that you have an equal balance of firepower in every row, because sometimes you can get a little unlucky and you can get a couple of bucket heads in one of the rows, and that can be a real problem. The other thing that you definitely want to do is be prepared for coneheads showing up in the pool, which they love to do before the first wave on this particular level. So again, just like I'm doing here, get those lily pads out and try to look and use a visual cue. I actually got the wrong visual cue. I thought it was in the 4th column, and he was actually in the 3rd column. So I actually could have saved a much more significant amount of time had I put that scaredy shroom in the correct place. I didn't, and instead I lose a C shroom, and I get slowed down. But, oh, he gives me another diamond. That at this point, you know, makes no difference. I've already bought everything that I'm going to need for the rest of the run, and I just sort of focus on trying to get a few more plants up. You really want to try to get to 16 for this level. I think I might have only ended up with 15, or I got the 16th one really late or something like that. So, you know, that's what we deal with. So again, we wait a second for all the zombies to appear on screen, and so we can hear that screech, which means it's time for a blowover. The blowover is definitely necessary for this level. The vision is very, very helpful in the throughout the level, but particularly in the second half of the level where you can actually afford it. And then do just what I'm doing here. Put scaredy shrooms in those 2 rows. Again, we kind of got littered here with, balloon zombies. Try to get those set a little quicker than I just did. But again, you know, we got a double here. It's like, I don't know what the heck was going on with this run, but this is a lot. Oh, and I meant to plant a blowover. That was actually a huge mistake in this level. I meant to plant the blowover, but I accidentally clicked on the magnet. So as a result, even though this magnet does kind of come into use, it's in a pretty bad position, you know, I just kind of fall behind in terms of, you know, planting the magnets in a more useful position, which is either in the 6th or 7th column, which will help you deal with the pogo zombies, bucket heads, and everything else that sort of ruins your day earlier. You can use a secondary doom in this level, but if you're like me and you just didn't get it out fast enough, you're best off just kind of waiting. You can see again here that I had to, you know, get an early, you know, I had to eventually dig up that magnet shroom. So you can see that was pretty costly for the overall speed of this level. That, and, you know, again, just kind of getting littered with the annoying balloon zombies too. So again, this is not a perfect example of how this level can be played. Hopefully I've pointed out enough of the mistakes. You know, we waited for the final wave. That was a pretty good final wave. So, but again, we were up against a gold here, so I'd be okay with losing maybe 10 seconds, but 20 seconds is just, you know, 22 seconds is just, you know, so much more than I really would have liked. So again, I don't have the rake for this level, so now all of a sudden my first couple of plants are actually in pretty vulnerable position. Thanks for the host, by the way. I hope you're all enjoying the tutorial of Plants vs. Zombies, any percent speed run for the PC. Just to sort of, because this is an auto-scroller and, you know, more or less the strategy kind of speaks for itself. There are version differences. The PC version is probably the slowest of all of them, but it is sort of the quote-unquote main category of the run. I actually planted the pumpkin there on purpose in order to have 2 of the star fruits kind of doing that. Yeah, I ended up with no face cam because this is actually a pre-recorded run, and I wanted it to kind of take up the whole screen, and I was worried that if I put my face cam and there was like an audio sync issue or something like that, that it could be, you know, just a little bit of trouble. So I apologize for y'all not getting to see my beautiful, beautiful, handsome face, or so my wife says. But yeah, no face cam today, but we'll be back with the face cam for any and all future runs. But you know, I think having kind of the higher resolution and level of detail is good here. So a little bit of commentary on this level in particular. Your goal is to really sort of put the the star fruit in the middle of the level, and you really hope for as many magnets as you possibly can get. Even like 6 would be a really good number. An average run probably has 4, and as you'll see from this particular run, I only got 2. We really need the magnets because they help deal with, as you can see from the brief flash right there, the god-awful bucket heads. Yep, so, you know, we save a couple of blowers just for the balloon zombies, which haven't spawned yet. We got a crap load of lily pads on this level, but, again, not a lot of magnets. You can see now we have 3 bucket heads on the screen and no magnets to deal with them. So we just kind of gotta, you know, go with our star fruit, go with some of our offensive plants, and just hope for the best, because, you know, nothing else that can be done. You do want to try to have 1 cactus in every level, just so that a rogue balloon zombie doesn't escape on you, and if you don't have enough blowers. I had that cost me a run earlier. I thought I had a cactus in every single row, but I did not, and that was a real problem, as you might imagine. Right now I am short 1 cactus, but I do have 3 blowers, so the balloon zombies are not going to be a problem. I like to put the pumpkins, first of all, protecting your magnets, because the magnets are just so super valuable. And if a digger zombie does get through, put a star fruit in the same row as the digger zombie, and potentially put a pumpkin to protect the cacti in the back. You can hear Screech there, so just to be safe, we blower him away. It's also faster than killing him the old-fashioned way. You can also use the split peas to better deal with the digger zombies too if they happen to get dug up. Or if you have enough magnets, the magnets will actually take away the digger zombies' hammer or pickaxe or whatever it is that he uses. But again, having only received 1 magnet in this level, which is extremely below average, you know, we're forced to just kind of make do. So. You know, at this point, again, put the cacti maybe in the first 2 rows, put any split peas you get in the 3rd row, put the star fruit in probably the 4th, 5th, and 6th rows. You know, feel free to be pretty aggressive with the sea shrooms in the pool. I usually put them in the 8th and 9th, but again, you can see right here we got a huge wave here. There's, you know, 3. You know, there were 3 or 4, maybe even 5 zombies that could have used magnet help and magnet protection, and we just simply did not get enough magnets in this level. So we will not be saving any time, but again, you kind of gotta, you know, you gotta do your best, and you know, sometimes it's going to be with you. Anytime you hear the screech, try to use the blower as quickly as possible, just because it is faster to blow the zombies out of the level than it is for your cacti to deal with them manually. Again, I did get one extra magnet at the very end there when it basically didn't even matter. So although we had potentially, I think it was 10 or 20 or more seconds of time save, we ended up losing 10 more seconds. So again, I just don't want you to say, oh, that wasn't that bad just because you didn't get that many magnets. It actually, again, it really should have been a 10-second time save, and instead was a 10-second time loss. So on to the roof levels. So the roof levels are a little bit precarious in that, one, we do not have a backup plan, you would need to buy the lawn mowers, or the roof cleaners they call them, separately, which you should only do if you have as much money as I do, and you should not do otherwise. But you can also see the main problem we have with this level is, once again, we forgot the rake. Again, this is now the third time this game that we've forgotten the rake, or delayed it by a level, and once again we pay for it because we now need to buy the rake on level 5-2, meaning we have it for 5-2, 3, and 4, and then we don't have it for 5-5, which is an auto scroller. So again, these mistakes may not seem that big, or you might be like, oh, okay, it's a couple of seconds, and for your first zombie kill, but that was 25 sun that I didn't want to spend, and it takes the zombies much longer to walk across the level in the roof levels, because, or this level in particular, because we don't have any flower pots. We don't get the flower pots until the second level. So the strategy here we've sort of found to be optimal is try to get about 14 or 15 sunflowers out, and use a combination of the cabbage pults and squashes and potato mines to kill your first few zombies. And then once you get the firepower for it, as you can see we have now, after you have about 10 sunflowers or so, put repeaters there. And even though you can see that the repeater is on a slope going downwards, if you put the repeaters on that 5th row only, and then any row after that, the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th columns, the repeaters will work. Your normal plants will. But if you plant them any farther back, then they won't work until the zombies are basically at point blank. So that's why we put the cabbage pults where we do, and the repeaters where we do. So that's actually cannon fodder, so that the Bungee zombie will steal not the pot, but rather just some useless 25 sun garbage, and not. You have to be careful. He can steal your repeaters too, and if he does that, the strategy is to put a squash behind him instantly, and then he will jump forward by 1 square and kill the Bungee zombie in time. But if you are too slow, or if you don't have a squash, or any other problems that may arise, you can lose very, very valuable plants to the Bungee zombie. I don't think that happens in this run, but it has happened in other runs. So you sort of saw the strategy there. Again, try to get repeaters out and extra cabbage pults out if you see any cone heads. You can use an early jalapeno in this level to kill the first cone head that you see, but given some of my other problems this level, that did not happen. And you can see here that the obvious decision is for a jalapeno. We had a whopping 2 cone heads in that row, and we, then we just kind of take care of business in the other rows. So that final wave was very, very, very strong. So if you take anything from this level, take that the final wave was very good. We do buy the rate here just so that we're not falling even further behind. So again, take the final wave as sort of, how best to play the level here. You can also use squashes for the final waves, add extra repeaters, add extra cabbage pults, if the zombies are too far away for any of your kind of close range proximity one-hit kill plants. So in this level we finally have the rake, but we also have the flower pots. But you can see that the game started us with 1 fewer column of pots. So they're like, okay, we're going to offset this a little bit. So the general strategy that we do here is, for these initial, this initial wave, again, like we always do when we have the rake, just kind of get sun out as fast as you possibly can. And then when the next zombie appears, you're always going to want to plant like we did there in the 6th column. The reason that we don't get aggressive and try to go in the 7th column is because you need to plant both a pot and a potato mine. And it just so happens that this zombie was extraordinarily slow. There was no way to foresee that. We actually could have gotten away with it in the 7th column. But usually lining them up with the 6th column is just perfect. Again, because you need to plant both a pot and a potato mine, and that 1 second delay is too much of a delay to be able to deal with it. If you want to be a little bit aggressive, you can put a squash in a pot in the 7th column. And what that will do is it will jump forward and kill the zombie just a little bit sooner. The squash, of course, is a little bit more expensive, so you kind of have to take that. into consideration, but you know, sort of really constantly try to be planting pots and sun non-stop with just the bare minimum that you need to kill these first few zombies. Again, this was sort of the perfect setup for how we like to see it in the 6th row. So what I decide to do here is sort of the same trick that we've tried in previous levels, is if you have a squash, let the pole vault zombie jump over, and before he takes even more than one bite, you have dealt with him. You can also trigger him by putting a pot early on in his path, but what I decide to do there is just give him the old cherry bomb. It's a little bit late, and I might be a little late for my cherry in the huge wave, but the cherries actually don't help too much in the huge waves in these levels, because by that time you should have a repeater in basically every row, and away you go. You can see here that I dealt with this guy via potato mine and that guy via cherry bomb. The top one, of course, we will deal with a squash because more effective use of that damage, and the bottom one, because we kill them quicker, we will deal with via repeater, and our huge wave should be coming up. There's one more, so we'll deal with him. And again, just sort of, get some more firepower out, get some more pots out. We do want to replant the pots in the 5th row because, again, our repeaters can go there. It's a good, safe place for them. And again, we go all the way up to 20 sunflowers. It looks kind of funny, but we do that so that basically we can have a continuous production of pots, torchwood, repeaters. There's a very high demand for sun on this level. So I actually should have been a little bit more patient and planted that cherry bomb a little bit farther up. That cost me just a little bit of time. Again, be ready to use a squash for the first bucket head that you get. I had to sort of waste that chomper a little bit. I would have been better off to use him for this wave right here, but instead I planted some extra firepower. Again, in this level too, you're better off usually trying to get torchwood out, as you can see I did there, rather than trying to go for your second repeater. A little less expensive, and the splash damage is not to be underestimated. The best setup that you can get here is the 2 torchwood, or the 2 plants, and you can see I got a little bit screwed there. I don't want to dig up, and there's no way to effectively squash him, so I had to accept the loss of a very expensive repeater. But I replant that because we have a problem child coming up in the middle and at the bottom, so we squash the bottom, put some extra firepower in the middle, get our last torchwood up, and luckily that potato mine that we planted proactively comes in really handy here, that we can kill him cheap and easy, even though we didn't have our squash. So that sort of made up for a little bit of some of the slight misplays that I had earlier. Again, feel free to just chomper those guys. There's no need to dink around. Get ready to squash him, and try to do a better job than I did. I did lose one of my plants, so you can't totally blame me there, but try to have 2 repeaters and 1 torchwood in all the rows, and if you can afford them, a couple extra chompers scattered throughout just to deal with them. So these bungee zombies are a little bit of a problem. So the first thing we do is we go chomper here. Then usually we'll cherry bomb the back. I sort of had a little bit of indecision here, and I wanted to cherry bomb all those guys. I thought that would be a little quicker. So as a result of losing that valuable repeater and a very slow final wave, we lost a couple of seconds rather than saving a couple of seconds, but that's how it goes. And the strategy is exactly the same for this level, with the slight exception that now we start with just 3 rows of pots, not 4. So we sort of have to do we have to be very diligent about planting our pots as quickly as we can to make sure that we have enough room for all of our sunflowers and our torchwoods and our repeaters and, the occasional, any other pots that we might need, like a cherry bomb for the middle couple of waves. So for that reason, it's important in this level too to make sure that you have the rake, so that rather than wasting 25 or 50 sun early on with a cherry bomb, you can really, or a potato mine, you can, again, kind of go straight to business. myself a quick water break, as again, kind of the setup for this level is very, very similar to the previous levels. You can, if you're able to proactively plant the pots in the 7th row, as you can see we did right here, sometimes you can you can get away with you know, kind of planting a quick potato mine right there. But if you have to plant both the pot and the potato mine, you're better off just doing it in the 6th column. The other reason the 6th column is good is because that's a good row for your repeaters. So again, you know, best to use squashes and so forth to deal with the problems. Try to be proactive about making sure that you get enough pots in row 4 that you can keep up and also get to 20 sunflowers by the time the level's all said and done. I don't know why I haven't been planting a sunflower. That was just slow. Here I thought I could get the regular zombies in time, and then that would let me be a little bit more proactive with and use the squash for this cone hit. So the beginning of this level has been very strong indeed. And we're up against a gold here, so this is one where even if you don't see much time save, you might you know, you might have your doubts. But so we plant that as some cannon fodder just so that we can deal with him. And then we actually throw a little bit more firepower so that we don't lose that pot. Pots have a fairly long recharge time, so you know, kind of just be aware of that. This is really the setup that we want for the first huge wave. You know, repeaters and 20 sun on many pots. Again, we do use one pot for the cherry bomb. You have to. You can't plant it randomly on the roof. As nice as that would be. Almost usually immediately after the first huge wave, you'll get your first ladder zombie. Those can be a real problem, but again, so it's best just to go ahead and squash them. I forget exactly how many hit points they have, but they're another one too that it's really best to just use a one-hit kill plant on them, or use a magnet to get rid of the ladder, because they can be real trouble. Just to sort of quickly go over how many hit points each zombie has. Hopefully I don't forget any. The regular zombies have 10, the cone heads have 28, the pole vaulting zombies have 17, buckets heads have 65, the newspaper zombies have 17, the screen door zombies have 65, much less the bucket head. And again, if you remove the bucket or the screen, that goes down to 10. The football zombie has 80, which again, without his helmet, if you can remove that, goes down to 10. The disco zombie has 17. The snorkel zombie has 16. The zomboni has 58. It's a very random one, but again, you're really better off not trying to kill that by hand, but rather, you know, deal with him with one of our one-hit solutions. Dolphin has 17. Jack in the Box has 17. The Digger Zombie has 15, the Pogo Zombie has 17, but he's very fast, so be careful. The Catapult that we haven't seen yet has 33, and the Gargantuar, which we also haven't seen yet, has 150, so they are a real problem, but luckily we have a very good solution for being able to deal with them. This is another level that kind of ended up, the final wave kind of screwed me over and saved me from a gold for sure. I kind of had to, you know, dig up some plants, you know, and go with that. So rather than being a gold, we were just a couple of seconds behind the gold. But again, aside from this final wave, really use this level as a template for how these first few should run. I double-checked to make sure I did buy the gloom, that wasn't a mistake, and that I had the rake. And here is the setup, which looks very different for this next level. So conceptually, this next level is not very different from 5.3, and you can actually use 5.3's exact strategy for this level, but you will lose between 15 and 50 50 seconds if you do that. The Gloom Shroom strategy, along with the cherry bean, the coffee bean, and we get the coffee bean for the first time in this level, which is why we haven't seen this strategy before. You know, the coffee bean allows us to wreak absolute havoc on the zombies. But as a preface, 5-4 does not have the garlic, which we get and utilize a little bit later in the run. And so it is probably the most technically challenging level in the game. 5-8 and 5-9 are relatively difficult due to the gargantuars, and 5-10 can be a little bit tricky, you know, final boss and all that good stuff. But 5-4 can be very, very difficult, sort of due to the reasons that we will see somewhat shortly. This level is pretty good overall, but what we do here is very similar to what we did in 3-9, in that we delay the killing of these zombies. We easily could have planted and afforded to plant some pots up here much closer, but we deliberately choose not to. And the reason for that is that we want to get our first Gloom Shroom out before we have killed too many of the zombies. And to get a Gloom Shroom, it's a very expensive endeavor. And you can actually see that we played this very well. We got it just in time for the next zombie to come by. It was a cone head. It was in a row that was affected by the Gloom Shroom. So this could have been actually a real problem. And these two zombies also showed up in an area that is affected by the Gloom Shroom. So again, make no mistake about it, I was pretty lucky at the beginning of this level. Again, in addition to playing it right from a skill perspective. But I did get very, very lucky. And then this one right here that we can't kill with the Gloom Shroom, we put a fume here, and right by now we can get our next gloom out, and if we're not too slow, we can get this zombie dead before he takes any damage whatsoever. So this was a nearly ideal start to 5-4. You really want to get these two glooms out, and you have to be very, very careful of these cone heads right here, because we enter as much cannon fodder as we possibly can, because they actually can kill your glooms if they're able to walk forward the full distance. So definitely use pots and sunflowers and fume shrooms if you have to. Use whatever you can as cannon fodder to be able to deal with them. So as we get to the first huge wave, we want to be able to get up our first magnet, and we also need to sort of be thinking about our third gloom shroom. The glooms are on a very long cooldown, but so I ended up waiting here because I thought that there was a chance that that they could take some damage, but the third gloom should go there. And then at that point you want to put fume shrooms in the first and the fifth columns, just so that they can kind of, you know, back up and provide a little supplementary damage, because those columns are only being affected by two glooms. And you can also throw the occasional squash out at them. At this point, the squash isn't super necessary for anything else. Also very important to make sure you get magnets up, because you do not want the magnets to be too late. 2 is an absolute minimum, but I really recommend having 4. You can beat the level with just 2, but 4 is just much safer if you happen to get, you know, a bunch of ladder zombies and bucket heads and all that crap coming at you all at once. It's much better. We're actually already getting pretty close to our 4th gloom shroom, and we also want to be proactive and get an early doom up. So I meant to mention that, but at the beginning of this level you might find that you didn't get quite as fortunate as I did, and all the zombies happen to show up, of course, in the row that does not have the gloom shroom. What you do in that point is you actually doom them, because you really don't need the doom for the first huge wave or anything like that. You can just use the doom to kill zombies in, again, if you plant the gloom in, say, the second row, you can use the doom, let's say, in the 5th column, in one of the back positions here, one of the unused spots that wouldn't be as affected by wouldn't be quite as affected by your planting. You wouldn't need that spot for planting, and deal with it from there. So now at this point we have 5 glooms up. There's really nothing that can get past us. It was a little bit of a mistake. I really should have planted one more magnet than I did, but again, 3 is fine. Really, 4 is better, but 3 is good enough. You know, in some ways it's nice to have a little bit of extra firepower in that first and fifth columns, but you know, beyond that, it's you know, it's not bad. Again, I planted a little bit of cannon fodder in front of the second Gloom Shroom because he did take some damage, and the squash maybe isn't necessarily, you know, yeah, it isn't bad, but yeah. So Rabbit Dog just mentioned in chat that he thinks he may have found a solution to that accidental pausing, so I'm definitely going to go read up on that. You're welcome to go check out our Discord. This 6th Gloom Shroom, I'm mostly just showing off at this point. It didn't even actually get in that much damage, but it can help with your next to last, and then, you know, the wave before the final wave, if you plant it in just the right position. But you don't need it. I was more just kind of showing off. It's nothing else. So anyway, Rabbit Dog, thank you for the proposed solution about the accidental pausing. I would say it causes me probably 1 to 5 seconds of time loss in each run, which again is not insignificant. So just as you hear the yeehaw vocals, that's a good time to plant a coffee bean on your Doom Shroom, and if it's in the right spot, which is exactly the spot where it was, you know, blow everything to smithereens and be done. So after that level, you'll see very briefly that we get introduced to the Zen Garden, and the only goal there is to get out of it as fast as possible. So you have to listen to Dave's text and then quickly hit escape, and then dive back to then dive back to the main menu, click start 5-5. So there's sort of a pattern that goes along to it that you know, is, you know, something that you kind of just have to get used to, but you know, you'll do that. So this the early part of this level was really poor. I really needed a pot in order to deal with him, and I did not get a single pot. Oh yes, of course I get it now when basically it doesn't matter, and I have other zombies that I need to deal with, including the one in this row. So I lost about 10 seconds in the beginning of this level alone, purely due to bad luck of not getting the plants that I needed. You can see here that I chose not to waste another pot, and I tend to save the pumpkins until I truly need them, i.e. until I'm either going to lose a pot or a chomper. Again, you'll sort of see, you know, being a little bit proactive there so that I have a spot to kill them. I really should have used a cherry bomb here. A little bit, oh, actually, no, I did use a cherry bomb. Forget about that. You can see I timed that just perfectly that I was able to capture all 4 of them, so that was a very, very good use of the cherry bomb. I just did not have enough chompers and firepower to be able to deal with the zombies effectively. You know, keep these zombies safe, and well, you know, again, in this case, I was a little, you know, I don't love using cherries when I only kill 2 zombies. It really doesn't feel worth it, but sometimes you can argue that it is worth it because it helps you move on to, you know, the next wave just that much faster. You know, again, I had a little problem here, and I'm just like, F it, I'm just using a cherry bomb, I don't care. Again, this is another level where you don't need to kill every zombie in order to proc the next wave, but, you know, you do need to kill what the game considers enough of them. That was maybe a waste of a cherry bomb, but I did really want to proc the huge wave. So, you know, I maybe save 5 seconds here, cost myself 5 seconds later on, you know, it's there. So, very quickly here, you'll see that I try to plant chompers behind chompers that are going to get eaten, so that they deal with the bungee zombies the most effectively. The chompers are a little bit dumb and they can't, like, chomp above them, but they can chomp in front of them very effectively. So be sure you do that. And again, like we do here, you know, make sure you get up the pumpkins to, you know, protect your vulnerable positions. Which I did a pretty good job there. And I get another diamond. It is extraordinary that I have $8,000, I guess you call them. I have had levels where I've not even had, I would have had like 8,000 or 9,000 less at this point in the run, just kind of purely due to bad luck, bad drops, and a little bit of not being as diligent as I could be at picking up the coins. So like, do I use a cherry bomb here? Do I not? I ended up not, and I think that was a good decision. I could have placed that cherry bomb in a better spot and potentially saved the use of the chopper, but I should have been a little bit quicker about, dealing with the, oh, I wanted to use the zombies in the back row there to be able to save my planted choppers for earlier. You can see I kind of tricked the grave zombie. I didn't get the pumpkin down as soon as I could on the bottom row. I was completely focused on the top row. That cost me a chomper. So you can see this wasn't a horrible level, but I did need to play just a little bit better. And here I'm like, oh, I really got to, I'm close to the final wave. I got to, give up a chomper to move the level along. So the trick with this level is to be relatively aggressive. Try to save a cherry bomb or two. I really should have used another cherry bomb or two as I got towards the end, because as you can see here, I got another one that I wasn't expecting, and I did finish. That final wave was very, very, very good. So again, out of 15 seconds of possible time save, I saved 6, which is good. So again, from here on out, things are pretty good. Again, I do remember to buy the rake now. That's another thing that could have sped along that last level a little bit. If I had the rake, that would have been one chomper that did not need to be used, and I could have used elsewhere. So in terms of getting a gold, again, I should have been a little bit more aggressive with the cherry bombs. I'm usually overly aggressive. That's why I kind of did a little about face there. And if I had the rake, I think that could have saved the remaining time that I was looking to on that level. So 5-6, the strategy is very, very similar to 5-4, but with one very happy exception, that we have the garlic. So we now no longer need the magnets, and instead we use the garlic. So what we do is we plant the garlic in the 1st and the 5th rows, and then that will push the zombies into the 4th and the 2nd rows. So with a single fume shroom in the 3rd row, we can actually effectively hit all zombies. So you can see that's why I proactively put a pot up there, because that is definitely where our first fume shroom is going to be going. We still take the first couple of waves a little bit slowly, if we can. If I'd gotten a zombie that showed up in the 3rd row, I might throw a squash at him. And in this case, I did decide to get, maybe a little bit more aggressive than I had to be, and that kind of maybe cost me a little bit. But I was thinking things would be a little bit, along further than they were. With the cone heads are a little bit tricky. If you start shooting them immediately as they're walking past, you'll be able to kill them in time. But if you start killing them late, as happened there, let's forget. So you'll see here the garlic strat. That zombie normally would not have been hit by the fume shroom, but because we push him into that row, you can see he gets wasted easily. So we save just an enormous amount of time. We can use our squashes for some of the cone heads here, just because, again, it helps save a little bit of time. And before we know it, we're already on to starting to build our second gloom. So the beginning of this level was very strong. I wouldn't have done anything much differently. I think it was good. Yeah, we also plant a garlic in that row because it then potentially pushes these zombies into the other glooms, as well as it helps to protect the zombies themselves. If you get a bucket head or a cone head and they eat the garlic, it'll push them into a row that does not leave your glooms very vulnerable. So again, I'm highly, highly confident that this strategy, overall, you can make a few little tweaks, but that the general strategy for this level is the correct one. It's very, very strong. You do far more damage than even the repeaters and torchwoods do, because you affect all zombies in a 3x3 square. Sort of as you can see here, I've probably been damaging 8 or 9 zombies at a time. The only other slight trick with this level is now that we have the annoying catapult zombie, you just want to squash him, and you can do that best by putting the squash in the 7th row. And even though he will run over your garlic, you know, it's not a big deal. The garlic is pretty inexpensive and has a very fast recharge time. So that's what we do. Again, I like to be a little proactive with the glooms, so if I happen to need another one, you can see that poor garlic keeps getting really abused in the bottom row. Less than ideal, but it's not a huge factor in terms of the speed of this run. Again, we're getting pretty close to now our 4th gloom. And sort of, you know, in between when you're planting glooms, you just want to plant some fumes in columns 2 and 4 to, you know, just sort of, that's where most of your zombies are going to end up, so it makes sense that that's where you want most of your firepower to end up. So, for example, you'll actually see we don't want to use a squash on him, because now that we have 2 fumes, or 3 fumes and 2 glooms attacking him, he died by the time he got his first shot off. He gets absolutely wrecked. It's really only when they show up in the rows, like rows 1 and rows 5, that have a little bit less firepower that we're mostly concerned with, you know, with using the squash like we do. Sort of as the level progresses, I might throw the occasional fume in column 1 and column 5. But again, this level's pretty quick. It's only a 2 flag level, so you know, we can move right along without much fear of anything going wrong. So I actually made a little mistake. I needed to be faster at planting that cherry bomb, and I'm actually very lucky I did not lose the doom shroom there. That could have been a disaster. So we saved about 10 seconds on that level. You know, happy to report that was a very good level. That's sort of exactly how it should go. You know, a few little things could have gone slightly better, that we might have been able to save a little bit more time, but you know, at that point it's mostly luck. Execution-wise, use 5-6 as an example for how these levels really should go. Actually, I think most of the levels for the rest of the run, execution-wise, were very strong. A little bit of bad luck in one of the levels early on. It might actually be this one. Some slight, you know, execution versus luck situations, but you know, so it is. So here I decide to get a little bit greedy, and I don't recommend this for newer runners. Really, I should have planted the squash farther back. But what I decide to do here is plant him in that column so that we kill that first zombie a little bit quicker. Again, what it means is that we're going to have a little bit less sun as we want to go gloom time, but it does mean that we save about 10 seconds of walking, you know, at this point. So it's a strategy I would only recommend for more advanced runners. If you're not that advanced, you know, let him go through all the way to the 3rd row, squash him there, kind of do it the old safe and sound way. You can actually see that I ran into a little bit of a problem here. I was kind of like, all right, I really want to get the gloom out. You know, I really want to deal with future problems, but so what I thought that I could do was potentially slow down the zombies enough to be able to push them and kill them with a single squash. But sort of all the time, the 10 seconds that I gained early on, I sort of ironically end up losing here. So, but I did manage to sort of push them, as you saw, get them on a single squash, get the garlic out just in time, and as well as getting that zombie dead just in time, and now we're back to normal. So you can sort of see that I got a little bit greedy on this level, but then ended up paying for it just a little bit. I saved 10 seconds, but then lost 10 seconds, so you know, you kind of get what you get from some of these levels. You can also see that I'm a little bit farther behind than I would have liked in my stun production, and I didn't get the garlic up in time, so I almost lost that gloom shroom, which would have been absolutely disastrous. Yeah, and I've been slow on stun production. Again, kind of, you know, anytime I need to alter the strategy too much, So anyway, don't use this level as an example of what to do until you're a more advanced runner, and even then, you know, be prepared for potentially falling behind, particularly if you get zombies showing up in the first and fifth rows, you can't deal with them in time, and you can't get the gloom up in time. It does become a bit of a problem. You know, on the plus side, the setup looks really good at this point. So you can see here, it was actually very important that I very quickly and efficiently killed that bungee zombie. It's totally worth it. It saved, you know, at least 150 sun, as well as some of our, you know, valuable recharge time. So totally worth doing that. You know, and this is basically the same strategy. This is a 3 flag level, has 3 huge waves. So at this point, it's mostly just, you know, kind of filling in the blanks with, you know, fumes and a few more glooms. In this case, it actually doesn't matter at all if we lose our garlic. Not a big deal. It's just 50 sun, and that's much better than potentially losing our glooms, which can happen. You know, as you saw, we risked that happening earlier. Again, use the occasional squash just to move the waves along a little bit. Saves a couple of seconds here and there. Here I was a little bit slow in getting, and I didn't have the squash and cooldown anyway, but yeah, we did manage to kill it in plenty of time. We didn't lose any plants from the catapult. I think it's 4 hits per plant or something like that is what kills him. Then you'll see this guy gets, you know, completely melted. You know, once you have 2 glooms attacking at the same time, it's really pretty good. Sometimes I'll put up a little bit of cannon fodder in some of those rows, just because the ladder zombies they do move very fast, so you know you have to be pretty careful about taking care of them. With 3 glooms, the ladder zombies die pretty quickly, but before then, you know, I like to just throw a little cannon fodder at them and call it a day. It's maybe not worth replacing the sunflowers at this point. You know, the probability of them, you know, even generating the 50 sun that it costs to plant them is pretty low. Kind of go either way. This is worth it, though. You really, you know, I did a good job there. You really have to protect your gloom shrooms from the bungee zombies in this level. We do have a solution to them, the umbrella plant, but unfortunately the strategy does not allow for umbrella plants. It's, you know, you gotta deal with what you got. So we just don't have enough seed slots. And at this point, the setup's really cool. Like you can kill anything. Like, you know, this catapult zombie's gonna die almost before he gets his first shot. Look at that, you know, just completely wrecked. Gargantuars can still be a problem, but we don't get any Gargantuars until 5-8. So now I'm going to be a little bit better about my Doom Shroom. You can see I'm already planning for it. You hear that second long yeehaw. We start to plant. Dead. And sometimes the marigold like flies all over the screen. It's really weird, but a decent time there. Had it not been for that early mistake, we would have been near a gold. So 5-8, you'll get very used to the plants that I'm picking. You know, it's basically the same strategy from here on out. But in 5-8, we have to deal with our first Gargantuar. And so the trick with their Gargantuar is not just that they have a crap load of hit points, but they squash the early pots that you have, and if you let them get too far, they will squash your gloom shrooms, and that is a real disaster. So we've developed a strategy that you will see executed pretty well in this level, whereby if you can basically simultaneously squash them and doom them, then they die, and they don't even have a chance to toss the imp halfway across the level, which itself can also be a problem if you're not prepared for it. But what it means is that we need a few more dooms in this level. We don't really just need the one for the final wave. We need more dooms sort of throughout, throughout the rest of the level. So, again, we just, gotta try to be prepared for that. The dooms are definitely necessary on this level. I've sort of thought about whether it would be worth replacing the doom with, something like a potato mine or, a chomper or something like that. You can see here I'm a little bit, proactive, or I try to get cute and I end up losing the pot anyway. But yeah, this guy I sort of used the same strategy. I kind of try to stall him so I can get the sun that I need for this. And then I stall him by letting him eat another pot. And in this case, I really had to get the second pot up just to make sure he dies in time, which he does just barely. Again, at this point the strategy is mostly the same. Get your garlic up, get your fumes up as soon as they come off cooldown. Throw the occasional squash at some of the bucket heads and cone heads that you get. Plant the backup fumes. And in this case, until we get the Gargantuar, which actually comes right after the first wave, again, it's really important to try to get some early dooms down. That's huge. Yeah, so you can see I was a little late in getting that planted, but away we go. Again, with these huge waves, don't use the dooms for these huge waves. It's very, very, very important that you save them for the Gargantuar. So you'll see here what we do is we go squash, and instantly we pick out the doom, and 1, 2, doomaroo, and he's done. What you could do is start to plant, if you're really quick about it, you can plant the coffee bean first, and then plant the squash second. But sometimes when that happens, you end up losing your pot, and then you can't get the pot in time, and then the imp gets thrown, and you're in trouble. So just kind of go with a quick 1-2 punch like that, squash and then doom very quickly back to back, and it's not failed me yet when I've done that correctly. It's a little bit tricky in the final wave in that you actually have to wait for the Gargantuar to get a little bit closer in order to give him the 1-2 punch, because you don't have the doom in the ideal placement, which is the 7th column. It's all the way over in the 6th column. So sometimes what I do is I plant a backup doom that will take care of him if, for whatever reason, the first doom misses him. So again, it's good to have a couple of dooms as a backup strategy if something goes wrong, or he's just out of the hit detection box, or something like that. So keep that in mind too. I found it really isn't necessary to have more than 15 sunflowers in this level. I sort of, or any of these levels, even the 3 flag ones. This one's only a 2 flag one. You can see here that this is my backup plan for the doom. It's not the prettiest thing of all time, but again, we give him the squash. Then we actually use that new doom because it's a little bit closer to the Gargantuar, so we're sure we get the hit. And yes, we didn't kill that one, but he dies very quickly. So again, out of the 23 seconds we could have saved, we saved 10, and I think part of the hiccup was due to that problem we had earlier, but I remember also having a very, very good gold for 5-8 about a month ago. As a meme, you can buy the roof cleaners. That was all I did there. That's not something that you need to buy. You do need to buy the rake. You do not need to buy the roof cleaners. That's just for the memes. The strategy here is very similar. This is a 3-flag level, and you may get an extra Gargantuar. So again, it's most important in this level that you really get those dooms up as quickly as you possibly can. You know, try not to get too greedy. Just kind of go with the staple of what works. Yeah, and you should be good. Again, I do believe that it's the best strategy to really stall out these first few zombies, because once you get the Gloom Shroom up, you know, it really doesn't matter, you know, if you're a zombie or two behind, because the Gloom Shroom just mows them down so quickly. Same thing there. We really don't like having cone heads this early on. We've gotten a little bit lucky ever since 5-4 with the cone heads, but this one wasn't too bad. It just cost us 1 pot. Not too bad. And this, I think, could have been a cone head too. Again, most of the time early in these levels, when you see a cone head, there's a 50-50 chance it's going to be 2 regular zombies, which is almost always faster to kill, except when you're using a one-hit kill plant, in which case it's slower. Or it'll either be a cone head zombie or the 2 regular zombies. So. I really should have had a Doom up by this point. It's not the end of the world that I haven't, but usually we only get 2 Gargantuars throughout this level, but sometimes you can get a 3rd if the game's feeling particularly sick and twisted. The only other little surprise or surprises that we get on this level is, one, you can get bucket heads in this level, so just be prepared to use some cannon fodder. And number 2, it almost read my mind, you can get Jack-in-the-Box zombies. Usually the Jack-in-the-Box zombies take at least 10 seconds before they blow up, but I one time had a run where I had 3 glooms next to each other. He blew up earlier than I've ever seen him blow up by, like, I swear, like, over 10 seconds earlier than he usually does, and he blew up 3 glooms, 1 fume, and the garlics and all the pots that were in that area, and I ended up losing over a minute. So it's extremely frustrating. You could have a run that has an extremely good pace, but if those troll Jack-in-the-Box zombies decide to blow up your gloom shrooms, you can lose nearly all of the progress. And if you've just recently planted one of those gloom shrooms, like I did right now, you then could be 50 seconds away from being able to even plant your next gloom shroom. You could then need to use your dooms in order to just kill the regular zombies. It can be a real disaster. So again, nothing you can really do about it other than just try to kill them as soon as you can. Let them walk up as close to the firepower as you can, and just get those hits off on them before they can cause trouble. At this point, it's debatable about whether it's worth planting that garlic. The middle row really isn't much of a threat anymore. You know, I maybe should have cannon fodder for some of those, some of the bucket heads. I actually think I do. Yeah, I do here, so not too bad. Again, I don't care too much about the fumes getting stolen. It's only the glooms that that I would throw an emergency squash in order to save them. And I think this is our last Jack in the Box, but luckily we have 3 glooms and 3 fumes hitting him all at once, so he gets absolutely wrecked, as does this one. A little bit slow in getting the cannon fodder out there. Almost lost that gloom, but again, at this point we're so close to the end of the level, it wouldn't have been too big a deal. It would have been a little bit slower to kill this zombie. You know, I wanted to squash him, but it's very, very important to save the squash for the final waves. I throw a gloom here actually to help protect the dooms. That's something that I'll only do sort of in a situation like this, where sort of excess capacity allows for it. So I go squash, I go doom, and then unfortunately I didn't quite kill the one that was out there, so I say, okay, you know, take your fill. I'm going to be conservative. I really should have planted that a couple seconds sooner. But we could have saved, we could have gotten a gold and saved probably 10 to 15 seconds if we hadn't run into that last little hiccup. So anyway, now we are on to the boss. So first thing that I guess I'll comment on is, if you're wondering why I named the splits what I did, obviously they're all band names, but they're also sort of puns or light puns for the nature of the level or the name of the plant that you get for the level. So 410, where, you know, it constantly kept blacking out, that's Third Eye Blind. You know, this one's the Mighty Mighty Boss tones, you know, pun on the word boss. You know, Johnny Cash, we first get the marigold, not that we actually use the marigold, and so forth and so on. So some of them are a little bit of a stretch, but you know, I'm a musical person, so this is just something that's pretty fun for me. So in terms of the strategy for this level, what we kill him in what we call a number of cycles, quote unquote. And by a cycle, that means the number of times that he leans over and takes damage from us. Each one of those times is a cycle. The fewest number of times that anybody has ever killed him in is 3 cycles, and A1 has done that twice. But the average is probably 4, with sometimes it being 5. So this is our first cycle, which is almost always like pretty weak, and you really don't want to throw a lot of your firepower at him. I actually kind of got lucky that I got a jalapeno there. I really shouldn't have used it as soon as I did, but such is life. It's okay if the first wave, you want it to be a little bit better than that, but because he threw so many cone heads at us at the end, and we had gotten complete crap for firepower, you can see now we've gotten 7 cabbage pults and only 2 melon pults. Ideally, it would be the other way around. We want as many melon pults as humanly possible, but sometimes what we want, we do not necessarily get. Again, more cabbage pults. We've gotten absolute garbage for plants so far this level. So I throw these jalapenos out just to be able to deal with the bucket heads, and just sort of, and then I throw a couple of ice shrooms at him. He stays frozen for 4 seconds. That's an important thing to note. So you can kind of get used to the timing a little bit. And again, if he comes out with ice, just give it the jalapeno. And if he comes out with fire, just throw an ice. And again, now that we have a significant amount of firepower, it's more okay to slow him down. Ideally, after the second wave like this, he would be half dead, which is when the green meter kind of reaches, it's about the O or the R, you know, give or take a little bit. I decided that it's worth a jalapeno to save 1 plant there. I don't think it was actually worth it, and in hindsight, you know, looking at this Gargantuar, it definitely wasn't. You can see that we kind of get, like, completely trolled here, that he drops 2 zombies and then, you know, sets up for his next wave. I have never, ever seen that happen. That was super, super weird. And unfortunately, that Gargantuar did get his imp off. We lost our zombie. We had to try to stall him, and that didn't work. So this sort of very quickly turned into a complete disaster. You know, largely my fault, but I've never seen him troll as badly as he did. And he did, the damn Gargantuar even did squash that last pot, even though it didn't look through his animation that he did. There's a little bit of debate sort of within the speedrunners in the community as to where it makes the most sense to plant your melon pults. I've gone back and forth on this, but personally I believe that it's a little better to plant them in the back. The advantage for not planting them in the back is that, that's our third phase, by the way, and you can see he's not even that close to dead, so I'm pretty worried about what our time is going to look like. So the reason that I normally plant the melon pults in the back is that sometimes he throws the bus and it hits the row that's farther forward. So in other words, the farther back and the farther to the corner that your melon pults are, the less likely they are to get squashed when he throws the bus at them. But of course, this run, why would we have anything else other than, him throwing the bus at the worst spot and killing 2 of the melon pults after not having given us very many melon pults to begin with. So again, I complain a lot, but I just sort of like to point out that, this was, about the bad luck that I got, So what I'm trying to do here is, even if it's at the cost of a few plants, again, I was really hoping he would bend over in time, and that I'd be able to better deal with his problems. But I could not do that, and I end up losing even another pot than I had to. And you'll actually see that because I lost so many plants between the awful placement of the bus and the Jack-in-the-Box zombie, that you guessed it, we are not going to kill him in time. So we were very, very close to it. That last thing had been a jalapeno that would have done just enough damage, or if it had been an ice shroom, we would have done just enough damage to kill him. But now, unfortunately, we actually have to sit through a 6th cycle. So we could have saved probably 30 seconds if we had gotten a very fast 3 cycle, or maybe 20 seconds if we'd gotten a very, very fast 4 cycle. But instead, now that we're on to our 5th and 6th cycles, it's just bad. Maybe it's only the 5th cycle, but regardless, the time that elapsed between those 2 cycles was very, very high. Again, the argument for not having your melon pults in the back is that the catapult zombies hit the zombies that are in the back. But here we go, and it's GG. So this was not a very, very good time, but you can tell that just looking at a handful of the levels, we easily could have saved the time. And again, we stopped the timer, right at the moment. I had a couple frustration slashes at that point. But we lost about 1 minute and 30 seconds alone on the final boss, just due to mostly bad luck, a little bit of, hoping for the best and trying to have better execution, but, we get what we get. Kind of going back a couple of levels, there were really, really some problems, here, 4-9, could have been much better. I know I'm kind of zooming ahead a little bit, but 3-7 was awful. That was one of the worst runs, worst ones in the entire game. Was pretty darn bad. Even some of the levels that we mentioned, like 3-3, that we should have had a time save but didn't. There was that. We were ahead at one point. I know it's hard to believe it. 2-4, as I mentioned, was very, very strong. I used that. 3-5. What was it? 5-7, 3 something or other. As kind of examples. We did get a very bad 1-5. If I was playing for real, I would have reset after 1-5. 1-6 was good. And a couple other levels that, even though they weren't golds, they were still pretty strong. But really, I needed to be, I really needed to be a bit farther ahead than I was, and just kind of wasn't there. But again, I really hope that you found this valuable. Feel free to leave a comment, a suggestion, send me a personal message. My handle is twitch.tv/warmechgaming. That's WARMECH gaming, all one word. Give me a follow if you like it, or better still, even subscribe if you like what you see here. I'd like to do similar tutorials to this for eventually Plants vs. Zombies 2 and some of the other categories in Plants vs. Zombies 1. But again, I really hope that that you had, that you saw some value in this, and that you learned a little something, and that sort of together we can get together and really help to improve this run. So again, a couple little minor strategy changes, combined with maybe fixing the pause glitch and getting some better luck and better execution. I do think that we can bring the time into the low 340s, and sort of my penultimate goal would be a 339 XX, something like that. I think that would be extraordinary. You need extraordinary luck, perfect execution, and probably a new strategy on a level or two that's faster, more consistent, eliminates some of the variables, or some sort of better understanding of the game's mechanics in order to more accurately be able to predict exactly where which zombies are going to spawn where. Are we going to get a cone head? Are we going to get two regular zombies? And so on, or being able to sort of better get some of the patterns of Dr. Zomboss, which, as you can see, can be a real problem. So again, that does it for this tutorial. For those of you that stuck around for the near 4 hours that we're pushing here, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Again, feel free to give comments, add suggestions, join our Discord. I can send you the link in a private message if you're interested in the run. But again, even if you're just kind of looking to improve your play, improve your strategies, or just kind of learn a little bit more about speedrunning in general, that's why we're here. Personally, I do hope to be able to attend an Awesome Games Done Quick and do this run there. I think that would be just a great goal and really help to expand the community, keep things growing, bring some more popularity to the game. And again, it's such a popular series that I do think people find value, even though it's a longer speed run and it's not as action packed as like a Mario 64 or something like that, where there's kind of constant action all the time. But it is a fun game. It's not an auto scroller. The times can vary widely based on your strategies and your execution. So again, I hope that sort of came clear, and the numerous mistakes that I made in this run were obvious, and that my voice didn't bore you too much and all that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the run, and I thought I'd just leave you with one final thought. That being, why did the zombie do well on his math tests? And the answer is because, of course, it was a no-brainer. You got that? Warmech out.